now that we're recording, right? This is just gonna be a recording. This is not a live stream. So this is gonna be premiering in a couple days from the onset of this recording. But finally, finally, the video promised 3,000 years ago, right? It's being like able to
video.
Right, not that video promised 3,000 years ago, right? That belongs to a false that belongs to a false tradition, right? Oh my god, I gotta work that shit post.
We're starting out with the bangers. I don't know how we can keep up this pace.
I gotta finish that shit post I have to against Dev. It's gonna be funny, but I got other things to do in the meantime. So our goal today is, I know you can't see my mouse in the recording, but you'll see at the bottom mid right hand corner, this is the video that I made right before the turn of the new year, right? The whole point was to get this out before the turn of the new year. And this was not too long before I first did my first react to Skybrowse. My first react to the Skybrowse video was on January 11th, 2026, and I finally got incorporated into the Skybros, right? On February 17th, 2026. So, time flies when you're having fun, apparently, right? So this video.
Yeah, Pokemon.
Yeah, so right, Pokemon warfare, right? Funny enough, I don't know if you heard about this, but someone told me I look like a Muppet in this, and I was like, okay, that's actually pretty funny.
You told me that basically when they told you.
Right? It's like, well, it is pretty funny. I can see that, definitely see it from the mouth design, right? So, so we're gonna be
which Muppet?
Right? Oh my god. So we're going to be doing a review of a video, again, I released on the 22nd of December, 2025. So think of this as like a Christmas present to myself, right? Because I had this thing in
March.
Right? Because I had this thing in like a script form for quite a while. I just never actually finished it. And I find at the end, I had a resolution. It's like, I'm going to finish this essay, even though it's going to be imperfect, partly because I don't know the rules for how these people get around putting actual video and audio into their video essays, right? People like Super Eye Patch Wolf and Hiding in Public and all of them, right? No fucking idea how they get around copyright ninjas on YouTube, or if they just eat the copyright claim. I don't know how they do that, but it'll be a fun thing to learn.
There are people who do get tutorials on how to do that, but the algorithm always keeps changing, and YouTube is very inconsistent.
Yeah, it's inconsistent. Yeah, it's inconsistent by design.
Not sure if you know this, but Jacksepticeye basically recently released a video talking about this, just because he did an entire playthrough of Resident Evil 9, and all of his videos went through perfectly except for 4.
That's
noticing that people. Yeah, and he's been noticing that a bunch of people are having like random sections being copyright struck. That's
ridiculous, but it's not something I would put past YouTube, to be perfectly honest. Like I've linked, for example, the Amp Lemon video about like why YouTube is the way that this is and why it's literally all Viacom's fault. The YouTube is the way that it is, right?
Viacom.
But yeah, so so yeah, we're just gonna hop into this. So I have the timestamps down here for anyone interested, and I have all of the citations that I use for this video. So James Lindsay, I use Tick History, I use I use a publication from NCBI. So like I have a video on Kokugaku for like a part in the video, TLDR. I have a citation for Shameless Popery. So yeah, this is definitely not going to be like Hiding in Public. This is definitely going to be more like the anime philosopher from back in the day. I don't know do you know who the anime philosopher is?
Not by name.
Okay, so this was a lesser known YouTube critic. Still 67,000.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah. Well, this is a her, but yeah, I love their analyses. To be perfectly
I
honest,
ain't
like,
fixing the pronouns I called her.
right. But anyway, I'm committing to the bit, right? But yeah, yeah, it's like I love this individual's actual approach to analyzing media. It seems like one of the most like honest approaches to trying to analyze what exactly a piece of media is trying to say, right? And I think you personally, would you say I'm close? The way that like, because you were very involved, you were somewhat involved in like the articulation of the general idea of this. So by the end of this, I kind of want you to tell me whether or not I'm closer to like a hiding in public or super eye patch wolf, or I'm closer to the anime philosopher, because I was trying to thread the needle between those two. Yeah, but
I think you're just a dude who sees communists in your soup.
right. It's Gnosticism. Oh my god, it's Gnosticism, Bernie. Anyway. All right, so without further ado, let's get into this because this is a bit of a lengthy video. How do you want to proceed? Do you want us to listen to the entire section, or do you want us to stop at like certain parts?
We can do the entire section and then go back to the parts if we have like, something to say.
Okay, fair enough. That is probably the fastest way to do this. So without further ado, let us begin. I have the subtitles on
I've
because
seen your Amelia video. I have seen your Amelia video. Speed is not your game.
right. That's what I'm saying. Like speed is. If we're gonna like prioritize speed, then this is probably the way to do it. If we're gonna prioritize just like discussion, I guess like, just stopping whenever the hell we feel like it would be the case. But in this case, I think to save your time and mine, we should probably just do it section by section. Because as someone, you have seen Darling in the Franxx multiple times too. So again, I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on my thoughts on Darling in the Franxx, right? Okay.
And
So yeah, if you do want me to stop anywhere, just let me know. Otherwise, we'll stop section by section, okay?
okay,
All right, before we begin, I've just got to say, contrary to what I've heard from antis, Darling in the Franxx didn't just surpass expectations, it completely redefined them. Some called it a shallow Evangelion ripoff, even Gooner bait, but as often happens with powerful art, it was simply misunderstood. On the other hand, the fans didn't do a very good job of advertising this series to me either. Turns out, Darling in the Franxx would become my all-time favorite mecha series, right up there with Evangelion. Though I feel it might be unfair to compare the two because their purposes are so radically different. That's because Darling in the Franxx isn't just a dystopian anime like Psychopaths or a super robot horror like Bokurano. It's a deeply religious parable warning us against the very ideologies eroding our culture today. Now, regarding media criticism, there are three primary methods of analyzing any kind of media, whether it's literature, animation, comics, or cinema. The first and arguably the most objective form of analysis focuses on the work itself. These are your formal, structural, narratological, and semiotic approaches. These methods don't concern themselves with the intent of the author or with how audiences interpret the work, and it's obvious why such methods exist. We can all misspeak, say something we didn't mean, so the author's intentions aren't always fully articulated in the work itself, which is, after all, what we're analyzing. Likewise, we're not mind readers. We've all had moments when we've completely misunderstood what someone else was trying to say. The second method is more personal. It's about what the work means to the people involved. That could be the characters within the story, the author, or the audience. This includes things like archetypal criticism, psychoanalytic criticism, and reader response criticism. Hiding in Public and Super Eye Patch Wolf do this brilliantly and often. The third looks at media through some kind of epistemological or ideological lens. This is most commonly done through Marxist, feminist, or queer theoretic critiques. But I've also seen it approached from a libertarian perspective, like in Out of Frame by the Foundation for Economic Education, and from a more spiritual lens, such as through Word on Fire. My commentary on this masterpiece will involve all three of these strategies. After all, ever since I saw it, I haven't been able to stop thinking about what it has to say, and honestly, I can only fit a fraction of what I want to say into a single video. So think of this as a brief outline of my thoughts. That said, this will be a spoiler heavy video. If you haven't seen Darling in the Franxx and can't stand spoilers, please watch the series through first. Even if you hate it, it's a pretty divisive show after all. I'm sure I'll have something that might help you see it in a different light. And if you already love this show, you might want to fasten your seatbelt because I'm going to be directly naming and discussing a litany of historical figures necessary to understand the underlying point of this remarkably well-constructed anime. God, recording this is going to be a nightmare. Section.
So yeah, I will say, long story short, recording this was a nightmare, right? Because it wasn't just recording; it was also editing. Yeah.
Yeah, I can fully understand that. But but the first thing I do like to mention is what you said there about the fans. Yeah, any Darling and the FranXX fans who see this, get better at explain the show, because my God, the reason why both of us did not give the show a chance until we saw some clips, some very heavy spoiler induced clips, was because you guys don't know how to sell your work. Quite honestly, the Darling and the FranXX fandom kind of sells their works kind of like how modern Marvel does.
Could you? Oh, I was about to say, could you elaborate on that?
Basically, like, a main issue when it comes to the Marvel comics is that they keep on making a whole bunch of characters that are supposed to be new, original, but they're just saying cookie cutter, copy and paste with absolutely nothing worth actually looking into, and you can easily skip over them and miss absolutely nothing. And that's what kind of the fans actually kind of sold this series. They sold it as sounding like a generic cookie cutter mech anime.
Honestly, your experience with Darling and the FranXX fans and like how it was advertised may be a little bit different than mine, because like the way that, and I think this may be what you're driving at, is that like when I encountered people who were fans of Darling and the FranXX, oftentimes they would explain their series by comparison. Like they would like compare, like draw similarities to other mecha shows, and as a reason to draw you in, right? Whereas like, yeah, which actually sells this short, because honestly I think Darling and the FranXX is one of the most original and unique, ironically enough. It is obviously a love letter to a bunch of stuff. Yeah, you're gonna find a lot of parallels between like Evangelion, you're gonna find allusions to Gurren Lagann in here, you're gonna find all kinds of stuff, right? But it also goes way beyond what any of the other ones actually just like set up. But is that what you were getting at?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. So I will say,
going back to the Marvel analysis, like, how many of these new characters in Marvel can you say that the best way to explain them is not saying it's X but different?
I mean, yeah, fair enough. Marvel has been.
And that's kind of how.
Recent Marvel has definitely been disappointing. Yeah.
And that's basically how fans kind of sold Darling and the FranXX. It is Evangelion, but different.
It is Evangelion, but much happier, right?
Yeah, it's Evangelion, much happier. But then again, we've already seen the show that attempted Evangelion but happy, and it wasn't really all that good either.
Are you talking about Razafan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not a big fan of Razafan. I was like, talk about a show that like actually just completely misses the point of the show it's trying to critique, right?
And that's not the only one that has tried Evangelion but happy, but that's kind of like the go-to example. So it's like, if you're comparing Darling and the FranXX as Evangelion but happy, yeah, you're not setting the bar high for positive expectations.
Yeah, it's like it is obviously like less steeped in depression than Evangelion, but like Evangelion was primarily phenomenological in concern and existential in concern. This is, yeah, Darling and the FranXX is doing something totally fucking different, and we'll see that as we go through, right? It also could be that you and me were just exposed to like the absolutely like wrong part of the fandom that just didn't because that does happen, right? Sometimes people are exposed to a medium because they're just the way that they meet that particular story is not optimal and not how the majority of the community actually engages with it. I'm not exactly in the Darling and the FranXX community because I'm not in any specific anime community per se. I just enjoy anime, right?
Yeah, it's like, as you said, that's a problem that you can find in any fandom. You can find some of the best of works, but you do run the risk of running into fans that basically kind of make it difficult to enter into the series for one reason or another.
Yeah, I mean,
and
learning how to sell something is definitely a skill that you learn over time, right? But that being said, maybe it is a good thing that, Darling in the Franxx is difficult to sell at times, because gatekeeping is also kind of important, as we've definitely learned in the last 10, 15 years, right? Okay.
Although
So,
what I will say is, in this in this last year, I've actually been well, we're inside a year, so in basically about 3.5 months. I have actually been noticing a big push of people actually marketing and showcasing the beauty of Darling in the Franxx, and we may end up seeing more and more people actually giving it a shot.
yeah, well, that could be either really good or really bad, right? So, but,
It's a
so,
coin flip at this point.
So yeah, I don't know how well I delivered in like synthesizing all three of those angles that I mentioned earlier. The objective, the personal, and the ideological together. But I'll leave that up for you to judge at the end of this. Okay.
You did a decent job doing the setup at least.
Right. Okay. So now we get into like the heavy primer that is required to even understand what the hell I'm talking about, right? Explaining what the hell Gnosticism even is, because if you don't understand this, then it's kind of hard to understand how Gnosticism relates to Darling of the Franxx, right?
Yep.
Okay.
1. Gnosticism. So what if I told you the real villain of the series wasn't just a totalitarian dictator, an alien invader, or a bunch of kaiju, but a vampire masquerading as God? Before we begin a deeper analysis, I should probably confess up front that my take on this work is filtered through the theoretical framework of Eric Voegelin, the German American political philosopher and phenomenologist whose comparative analysis of ideologies, especially his critique of Gnosticism, is foundational to how I understand the genealogy of religion and ideas and ideologies. So, to be clear, Vogelin's Gnosticism is not just about ancient Christian heretics. It's his term for any worldview that claims the real world is a flawed carceral construct and that some secret knowledge or technique can remake reality itself. In this context, Gnosticism has three essential doctrines. The first is self victimization, the belief that you were flung into your circumstances by powers that are either indifferent to you or actively against your well being. The second is anti realism, that what you know through your senses, this ordinary reality, is unreal, a hyper reality estranging you from the real. And the third is soteriological, the belief that there exists a secret knowledge, whether you call it gnosis, jhana, bodhi, enlightenment, or even critical consciousness, that can save you. Sometimes it's about saving yourself, like in Gnosticism, sometimes the whole world, as in the Hermetic or Kabbalistic projects. Vogelin and Lindsay argue that Gnosticism tends to parasitize other worldviews. It hides its malevolent core behind the familiar appearances of accepted traditions, and you can see this pattern repeat all throughout history. Advaita is a Gnostic subversion of Hinduism. Hegelianism is a skinwalker of Lutheran ideas. Marxism is a branch of left Hegelianism, ironically, a Gnostic hijacking of scientific atheism. And liberation theology is a Gnostic, specifically Marxian subversion of the Catholic faith, and so on. I won't go too deep into the history of Gnosticism and how it's tangled up with modern ideologies, partly because that's outside the scope of this video, and partly because I dread having to edit such a monster of a project. But Darling in the Franxx, in the way its narrative and world building are constructed, draws heavily from the same pool Vogelin was exploring. So much so that while I doubt anyone at Studio Trigger actually read Vogelin, Peikoff, Lindsay, or the like, there's a stunning synchronicity between what they made and what Vogelin was diagnosing. If you want a brief introduction to this topic, and by brief I mean 126 pages, I'd suggest reading Vogelin's The New Science of Politics or Science, Politics, and Gnosticism. Or if you prefer a video, check out The Negation of the Real by James Lindsay over at New Discourses. While Lindsay doesn't have Vogelin's metaphysical grounding and sometimes pushes the method in more polemical directions, it's still a great starting point for newcomers. Granted, it's a 2-hour lecture, but even Tick History agrees it's one of the most accessible ways into this dense topic. Section 2, Plato's.
Okay. So, my summary of Gnosticism. Do you think that's a sufficient or insufficient summary of like what it is we're actually talking about?
It's kind of it kind of fits the theme of what you're kind of talking about here, but I think you could have put in like a little explanation on basically like the problems with all of these. Like you gave the list on basically which ones came from which, but said it's like that's all fine and dandy, but said you probably should have put in like a section part that basically says the issues with having all these different type of Gnostic beliefs infesting the world.
I mean, that's a fair critique. I do believe, and it has been like 3 months since well, actually, it was 2. It's been like 2 months since I watched this, right? Because I posted this and I was like, I am done, right? I must move on. But I do think I do talk about that actually in extraneous detail as we talk about, like, again, how Darling and the FranXX like relates to Gnosticism. But I do get what you're saying. I probably should have mentioned how like Gnosticism has infested many parts of our current society. You know, managerialism in the HR culture, state capitalism as like a subversion of capitalism. You know, through corporations, all that kind of stuff, right? You know, intersectionality as identity Marxism, and how oftentimes it is just just supplanting class conflict ideology into some other field, like, you know, criminal studies and critical criminal studies, that kind of thing. But I was kind of worried about whether or not that would actually bloat the essay, because I was trying to make sure that like the meat was there, but it wasn't too bloated. And this was my first attempt at a video essay, so the balance is a little wonky, right?
Yeah. Again, that's why I said it should have just been like a quick summary on basically why all these things are bad to have, because like and going back to what you insist, because it's the most common one people always turn to, the communism. It's like, yeah, we have a history of showcasing why communism is bad, but if you're basically someone coming into this thing not fully understanding why communism is so bad, and you just mention that thing, it's probably going to go over their heads as to why this thing is bad, or think that you're just spouting nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I do think this section is a little bit assuming that, like, some degree of background knowledge about some of this stuff. Like, again, I didn't exactly go out and directly say, you know, Marxism bad, even though I think you can infer it based off the way I described it, right? Like, I described Marxism as part of a project that is inherently anti-realist, right? Rejecting the real. But then again, anti-realism is a long tradition in philosophy, so apparently not everyone does agree that anti-realism is bad. So, I mean, fair enough, right? I do think that later in the essay,
and again, like it doesn't hurt to to put faith in hand that your audience is actually intelligent. But again, it's like this is like a review, and this is basically an analysis of Darling and the FranXX. And most people who watch Darling and the FranXX are probably not going to know the philosophical nature of most of the stuff you're talking about.
honestly, I think most people are just not gonna, because like I've met very few people in real life who actually. Now, it is strange when I do find people who do know this stuff, and I meet them in the oddest places every time, right? Like the most bizarre places I meet these people. But
why are you in my toilet?
oh god, well, who? Oh my god, remember Noralities? Sorry, that one who was like, ah, yes, I don't really like Dragon Maid, right? It's fucking. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Oh my god, Noralities.
Yeah, I don't remember. I am not good with names, so you're going to have to get more descriptions than names.
Yeah, I'll just pull up. I'll just pull. Yeah. Oh, so you do know who I'm talking about? Yeah, it is kind of funny because like she's.
The moment you mentioned Dragon Maid, I'm like, oh wait, I know this.
Yeah. The thing about, like, again, it's like it wasn't exactly subtle that her name was Noralities, right? Instead of like, which is only one letter away from moralities, right? Fucking literally a virtue signaling channel, right?
Yeah.
But where was I going with this? Fuck, I forgot where I was going with this. Oh wait, we were talking about shit. How did we get on this subject?
We mentioned something about running into people who know about Gnosticism and some of the weirdest place, and I made a joke about.
Oh yeah, so yeah, like, okay, yeah, so that's what it was. Apparently, that individual who doesn't like Dragon Maid because it has lollies in it likes toilet bound Hanakun or whatever that one is. I think you know that one better than I would. Which I thought was like remarkably like the circle has not been squared, right?
I find it hilarious on how that show and that series and also the one about the seventh prince are the ones that I mean like nearly
Oh yeah, I remember
90%,
people
right?
thirsting.
Yeah.
I remember seeing people
Yes.
thirsting for that. For
All these same people who were thirsting inside both of these shows are the same people who basically say Lolicon and Shotokan are bad.
yeah, it is a cognitive dissonance, but yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because like as soon as you brought that up, it kind of just reminded me of like the toilet bound Hanakun kind of. What is the name of that series? I don't remember what the name of the spirit in the thing is. It's bothering the hell out of me.
I think it's Hanako.
Oh, okay.
Like that.
Toilet bound Hanako. Yeah. I still haven't seen that show. I haven't read that manga. I know nothing about it except for a couple of details. Was like became an immediate red flag with that particular channel. I was like, oh, interesting, right? Interesting set of like contradictory positions. But anyway, back to the topic at hand, right? Sorry. Like, oh my god, talk about like ideological forward, analyses, right? So.
I know. I'm pretty sure this is the same amount of detour you have in all your other works.
Right. I mean, to be fair, literary criticism is the fine art of bullshit, right? So let's continue.
Republic, Vijnan, and Mahayana. The Society of Darling and the Franks draws heavily from Plato's Republic and A Brave New World. As in A Brave New World, the children are designer babies created to fulfill a specific function. They participate in a Juche-like cult of personality, with Papa being both head of the state and God. There is no sense of family. No one knows who their parents are, and so no one can ever know who their siblings are. The staff who raise the children discourage such notions. This is a salient critique of fascism, not the kind the left likes to throw about. I mean the kind as proposed by Giovanni Gentile and spearheaded by Mussolini. Fascism, for those of you unaware, is not simply right-wing, nor is it Nazism, though Nazism is a sister crypto-religion to it, as well as Marxism. Fascism is the political consequence of actual idealism, which holds that the collective of all human consciousness literally generates the universe. This is what Mussolini is alluding to when he said everything in the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. This is not rhetorical exaggeration, but rather a doctrinal exposition. This is what we mean when we say that fascism is idolatry, specifically statolatry, or worship of the state. The state is literally God because the state is the human collective from which the world itself is generated. And if that sounds like it leads to circular reasoning, that's a feature of this kind of Gnostic drivel, not a bug. Although Papa's role is less Mussolini and more Kim Il-sung, Adolf Hitler, or the Emperor Hirohito. Papa himself is God. He causes the weather. He hears prayers to bless meals. He orders society. Therefore, Ape, the state, is the agent of God in the world, as Ape is servant to Papa. I do feel as if I should point out that the emperor system of Japan, while it may mirror some post-Hegelian thought, is actually an independent convergent evolution stemming from Kokugaku. I'll link to a brief introduction about that in the description. Back to the show. In this culture, the life of man is of no intrinsic value. All human value is extrinsic. The value of your life is measured against how optimally or wholeheartedly you choose to live and die for the utopia, the end or purpose of history. The value of your life is measured against how much or little an other, in this case a god ruler, it doesn't matter that it's a false god, values you. Under Ape, you are wrong to value your own life for its own sake. To live because you need to, nay, want to live, is seen as a vice. This is the critical flaw of most metaethical theories. You don't mean anything, not upon real examination. Under deontology, you owe everything to abstractions, the Kantian imperatives, rules outside of space and time which know nothing of you, cannot love you or care for you, and who will, without compromise, command you to sacrifice yourself on their idolatrous altar. To tell the SS inspector that you are in fact gladly harboring Jews in your attic, condemning them and yourself to die in the camps, because lying is intrinsically evil, turning virtue against virtue. Under consequentialism, your highest worship is directed not to God, but to consequence. It does not matter if you live or die, or if you are immiserated. If utility is maximized through your suffering and sacrifice, you are to sacrifice yourself on the altar of that God named consequence, even if you never see its blessing. Under utopianism, what ape operates under, your highest worship is directed to the enlightened man at the end of history. History will use and discard you to its own ends and likely forget your name in deep time. Like Roko's basilisk, the socialist, feminist, queer man at the end of history will judge you on the basis of whether you gave your life to the historical process which reduced his potentialities into actuality. Although you yourself will never be blessed to enter into utopia yourself, you must live and die for gods who never loved you. Under divine command theory, it is the commands, not the nature of God, which demands the highest fidelity. The only reason the human being is valuable is because God commands that he is. But those same people will criticize Islam for believing that God, the fount of all being, psychic, material, and moral, can command what we see if Islam is true, which, mind you, it's not, to be evil, exposing that they do, in fact, believe God can be judged by man as evil. God.
Okay, I gotta pause it there because I did catch this mistake, and I was like, shit. I was already mostly through the editing process when I caught this mistake, so I actually put this as a as something on screen to read. So yeah, I'm just gonna read this out loud. That way we can all be clear that I did catch this mistake, right? So yeah, hold on. Let me dim these. Okay. I misspoke here. I meant to say that if Islam is true, again, it's not, then what Allah commands is good even if we see it as evil. The fact we can hypothetically judge a command from God to be evil shows a contradiction in divine command theory. That's what I mean to say, right? So I did catch this mistake. This is a mistake I made in the script, right? So I did actually correct this.
God may love you, but it's not because you are lovable. Plenty of theologians are very clear that there is nothing lovable about human beings, and that we are only lovable because God loves us, which, despite being a clear contradiction, actually falls into the same error we just discussed. You are a disgusting.
And again, this one was more of a clarification, right? Because again, it does turn out that like when you read a script over and over and over again, and this is like one of those things where I'm talking about the process, right? You miss the thing, you miss a lot of things because it turns out you know what you mean to say, and so you assume sometimes that the audience will catch what you're trying to say. That's not actually how it works. This is why you need an editor as a writer oftentimes, because again, you know what you mean to say, and you need someone to double check whether or not you actually said it correctly, right? And I think these are the only two areas where I actually make a huge fumble in the essay. So, which is something I caught during the editing process. So I'm going to read this section as well, okay?
1 star to me mistakes.
Right. So this is a contradiction because if God loves something, it is by definition worthy of love. This is again because God in DCT is the fount of all aesthetic and moral reality. So his judgments on beauty, love, and ethics are foundationally true. And I do think that this stands up to scrutiny, right? I mean, if God is the underlying ontological root and foundation of all truth, including aesthetic and ethical truth, right? Then, yeah, if God loves something, then that thing is definitionally worthy of love because God, the fount of reality, loves that thing, right? I think that's pretty solid reasoning.
Yeah.
Okay, so. All right, back to the show.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to this part, so you can keep going.
Okay.
You are a disgusting thing, utterly contemptuous in your being, and the only reason you are worth loving, if at all, is because another declared you to be. It's a form of theological voluntarism. Goodness is good because God commands it, literally one of the prongs of the Euthyphro dilemma. To be clear, each of these worldviews have more nuanced variations which attempt to address these problems, but these are ultimately ad hoc additions to the theories. There's nothing within the core of them that demands or justifies these ad hoc additions, and that is because all of these are pure abstractions. They pretend to account for the corporeal nature of human life. There are only 2 ethical worldviews which solve this dilemma: the virtue ethics of Aristotle and the rational egoism of Ayn Rand. The only 2 systems which hold that the condition of your own soul is the highest concern. Virtue ethics actually threads the Euthyphro dilemma the same way Platonism does, through a metaphysics where God himself is the form or essence of being and perfection. Goodness is rooted in the character of God, just as virtue is rooted in the character of man. The commands of God are not arbitrary, and since God made man in his own image, which is worthy of love, the life of man itself is worthy of love without recourse to any external justifications. This is the only way to render theism without becoming intrinsically anti-human. Inserting this here because I straight up forgot to put this in, but argumentation ethics of Hans Hermann Hoppe also avoids this trap. Ape and verm operate on an eschatological ethic. A human life, even a parasite's, only matters insofar as it moves the dialectic forward. Where is this dialectic moving towards? Nirvana, spiritual suicide, the complete dissolution of the self into emptiness, shunyata, which is at once the all and the one. Seeking nirvana for all, the bodhisattva path, may seem like a noble path at first, but it crumbles upon inspection. One of the most heartbreaking scenes is when Zorome meets his mother, and neither of them recognize each other. Another is when Kokoro and Mitsuru's minds are wiped after falling in love, which is framed as not only tragic but monstrous. Yet these are attachments requiring dissolution to achieve nirvana. The very love that Hiro and Zero Two have, which is intrinsically self justifying, is itself an impediment to nirvana. Tolerable to Verm only in that they can use it to create their own Roko's basilisk and swallow up all life in the universe and dissolve being into a hollow emptiness. The use of hedone, or pleasure induced artificially, mimics the use of soma in A Brave New World, which is named after the Hindu spirit of intoxication, as both painkiller and state of consciousness altering opiate. Hedone is used to control the masses of older immortals, and an everlasting gentle bliss, Ananda, in all but name, is used as a temptation to unbecoming within Verm. This goal cuts directly against the archetypal myth which Hiro meditates on throughout the series, the Jian, wherein complementary opposites become whole through a union which does not obliterate them. The juxtaposition is not accidental, but rather intentional.
The Jian, also known as the bird that shares wings, only possesses one wing. Unless a male and female pair lean on each other and act as one, they're incapable of flight. They're imperfect, incomplete creatures. But for some reason, their way of life struck me as profoundly beautiful. It was beautiful, I felt.
Hiro may not have valued his own life for its own sake at the beginning, but he does value other people as if they are intrinsically worthy of being loved. And when they eventually reject Papa as a false Papa, they are on the road to relearning that their lives are worth living for themselves. Papa's approval is not needed. This is a story about people rediscovering that human life and individuality are intrinsic goods worth loving in themselves. Section 3.
Okay, so there is an error that I did actually not account for. Again, this is my first attempt at editing, right? There does seem to be a section of script that was placed into the actual video and the subtitles, but it seems to not correspond to anything actually written. Which, again, mistake on my part, right? First time ever doing this shit. Let's see. So far, before we get to there, do you have any thoughts about... Oh, wait, actually, we're here. Okay. So, where we were at with these... let's see. Oh, that's funny enough, actually. Okay.
Hello?
Are you there? Are you there?
We got cut off, I believe.
Oh, that's annoying. Okay, fair enough. So where did you leave? Where did you cut off?
Right in the middle of the information dump on what the John was.
Oh, okay. So the bird with the two wings, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the scene from the actual the opening, which someone uploaded to YouTube, but when I tried to incorporate it into my like video essay, I got copyright struck and globally hidden. So I was like, I don't know what, because there was a song in there, right? Even though the one uploaded already has the song in there. It's like, are you kidding me, right? So I guess I'll just play the last sentence there. Oh wait, son of a bitch.
It was beautiful. I felt.
Hero may not have valued his own life for its own sake at the beginning, but he does value other people as if they are intrinsically worthy of being loved. And when they eventually reject Papa as a false Papa, they are on the road to relearning that their lives are worth living for themselves. Papa's approval is not needed. This is a story about people rediscovering that human life and individuality are intrinsic goods worth loving in themselves.
Okay, so from right here, just my assessment of this like idea. Do you think that this actually corresponds to what Darling and the Franks is actually trying to say?
Yeah, there are a few things that you did kind of miss that I would like to point out. Like all the main casts that we have don't have like the names that they're going by aren't actually their birth names. They're the names Hero gave them. What they have for actual names are numbers, serial numbers.
Yes, and reusable serial numbers at that. I forgot the reusable part, but I do bring those up later in the essay. So.
And not only that, but it's like as we do learn later on inside the series, most people go through who form a puberty blocker to keep in order to halt their growth and development into puberty, so they can be able to pilot these mechs without issues.
I do actually bring this up later in the essay as well, funny enough.
I'm just saying, it's like these would have been good moments to bring up here, and also the fact like, what's the name of the organization that these main people that the main cast is kind of working for?
I did make that joke. I did make an ape made a monkey out of man joke later in the essay.
More or less, they don't. These people don't. It's like this organization don't see these people as people. They basically just see them as farm animals.
Yeah, as parasites, actually, right? That's why they call them parasites, right? Like, literally, like, why do we have to rely on you, right? You're a waste of our resources, only useful up until you're not, in which case we destroy you, right? Yeah, it's a very it's a very, like, eschatological view of man. Again, kind of like the communists with, like, the revolutionary class, right?
And not only that, but it's like, the reason why Hero and his team don't actually go through the puberty blockers and are allowed to develop with age is because, for two reasons. One, everything else that the organization has been trying to do in order to destroy these Metarexes. I forget what they're called.
Plaxosaurs.
Yeah, Plaxosaurs. Sorry, Metarex is Sonic. Yeah. So it's like everything that they've been doing in order to try to destroy these Plaxosaurs haven't been working, so they're trying an experiment here. And two, the scientist running the experiment, he's just doing it for fun.
So the thing is,
actually trying.
So I got to correct you slightly on this. The Squad 13 is actually still being subjected to the same medical procedures as everyone else was. They only get released from these procedures when, like, again, the ape is actually overthrown and they get some semblance of freedom. This could have been possibly slightly better communicated in the show, but this is
because because when they remember when they first team up with the other squad.
Yes.
There's a medical procedure thing that they went through, which I've been calling the puberty blockers. I forget they call it something else inside the show. That Hero and his team doesn't actually go through.
Yeah, I haven't been able to watch Darling and the Franks in quite a while, so I will have to double check that. But if I remember correctly, you are correct though that Dr. FranXX is allowing them a unusual liberty compared to the other squads, largely because again he's doing it for fun, and he also has been able to convince the head of Ape that allowing this unusual degree of freedom for Squad 13 could potentially yield a tactical advantage against the Klaxosaurs, which might not make sense to anyone listening to this conversation right now until we get later in there where we start talking about the four loves and how they're all intertwined in Darling in the Franxx, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, overall, do you have any questions about this particular section?
None really.
Okay, fair enough. So let's continue.
Minus the 3 things I mentioned. You did a pretty good job here.
Yeah.
Section
Thank you.
3. Darwinism as Gnosticism. Darwinism isn't just a scientific theory. Rather, it's an alternative creationism masked as an atheistic science. It's itself a kind of Gnostic religion pretending to be purely materialist, and this becomes obvious when you see how it's ballooned far beyond its original biological scope. Universal Darwinism is a worldview that spills over into quantum Darwinism, cosmic Darwinism, literary Darwinism, social Darwinism, mimetics, and so on. This isn't just about natural selection in biology anymore, it's a totalizing philosophy, the one that turns competition, what Heraclitus would call strife, Marx called struggle, and Hitler called Kampf, into the ultimate engine of history. And here's where Vogelin's framework is so helpful. Darwinism, once it morphs into this grand philosophy of history, becomes just another Gnostic myth. It claims the raw material of the world and of humanity itself is fundamentally imperfect and must be pushed forward by struggle and conflict until it evolves into something higher. It's worth pointing out that the modern theory of evolution isn't even strictly neo-Darwinian. It's actually a modern evolutionary synthesis which tries to bridge neo-Darwinian mechanisms with implicitly non-Darwinian elements into a single framework. But that's a rabbit hole for another video. The point is, there have been alternative models running in parallel to Darwinism, from Alfred Wallace's theories to more recent restricted intelligent design, and that alone is enough to show that evolution and Darwinism aren't synonymous. If you want a deeper dive into this, I'd recommend Tick History's Did Darwin Cause Hitler? The Eugenics Debate. One of the many sources he cites is a paper titled Was Darwin a Creationist?, which you can find in the National Library of Medicine's archive. And Tick History is consistently transparent about where he gets his information, so it's a solid place to start. The important takeaway here is that social Darwinism, the idea that Darwinian principles apply to economics and class so that we can steer human evolution by manipulating which social groups reproduce, led directly to eugenics, practiced famously in Germany but also in the United States, targeting minorities deemed undesirable. This should make it clear how much this undermines the intrinsic dignity of man. It reduces people to instruments in a historical process, means to an end, not ends in themselves. Ape's stated goal is literally the control of human evolution. In the backstory, they explicitly manipulate economic classes, pushing humanity into sterilization in exchange for the promise of immortality. And the reveal of Ape's true origins and purpose situates them right inside a hermeticist vision of cosmic evolution. This atomized immortality is just one stage in the supposed path to enlightenment. The elders of Ape get to taste the Devaloka, the life of the gods, before they are discarded as history marches on towards the Omega Point. Through the use of magma energy, a literally chthonic or underworld power, they make a specific class of humanity, those who reject religion, relationships, and reproduction, into functional immortals. They promise this is the final perfected state of man, a utopia where heaven, nirvana, or moksha is pulled down to earth. It's the Gnostic dream of immanentizing the eschaton, dragging the ultimate end or purpose of history into time by sheer human effort. And later we find out that magma energy isn't just some fantastical power source, it's the literal life force of a race of rational souls who existed before humanity and were nearly wiped out by an alien invasion. This detail becomes crucial later in the story. Because these Klaxosapiens are a mirror to Ape's project, they made the same catastrophic mistake, though for opposite reasons. To defend themselves from an alien threat, they took evolution into their own hands. They instrumentalized and transformed themselves, and in the process of transforming what they were, they destroyed themselves to save themselves. This especially Hegelian view of man as something temporal, existing to be used and discarded by history in its drive towards resolving contradiction, conflict, and struggle, explains the complete dehumanization of the parasites. Even their designation isn't just a comment on their biological interface with the FranXX, it reflects their role in a historical dialectic. where individuals are simply tools to reach some ultimate telos function or purpose. Ape sees the parasite's only value as their contribution to creating this enlightened state of man. And since the Klaxosaurs stand in the way of this enlightenment, the parasite's only value is insofar that they can eliminate them, or become martyrs to advance the process. But outside that, the parasites have no dignity of their own. The very city, the supposed utopia they fight and bleed for, was never meant to include them. They were promised that once they grew up, they'd join the adults in their pseudo-paradise. But that was a lie. The parasites are genetically engineered to never live long enough for that to happen. And it's painfully clear that if Ape succeeds, they'll simply discard the parasites as an undesirable, though temporarily useful, class of idiots of their own design. I guess you could say Ape made a monkey out of man. Also, the 7 stages of Ape formed the Lamarck Club. So the process of controlled evolution isn't just about the macro evolution of the human race, but the evolution within the self which radiates outwards into the future, an alchemical process to redefine man in his very species being. Section 4.
All right, your thoughts on that particular section?
Yeah, it was quite good. It's like you kind of covered just about everything you need there. You threw in that ape ate a monkey out of man type joke.
Right.
Basically.
I mean, I think that's literally the joke with it being ape, to be perfectly honest, right?
Yeah. And you even mentioned the fact that basically the parasites are given a much shorter lifespan than we typically do.
Yeah, because again, it's like they're meant to live very short lives, whereas again the adults in the plantations and the golden cities get to live for untold, uncalculable numbers of years, right? In fact, in the show, from what I understand, like from what I remember, we don't even know how long it's been since the current era, and when Darling in the Franxx takes place, which I think is like by design, right? So.
Yeah, it's like all we know basically is that the people inside the plantations kind of live a very dystopian type of lifestyle where they live in basically pure pleasure or sanitized pleasure. But at the same time, and when we basically had that one, I'm not good for names. What was the kid's name?
Oh, the kid?
Got separated.
Oh yeah, that was Zorome.
Yeah, when Zorome got separated from the rest, he was the first person to actually realize that there's never been a parasite to go to the plantations. Even though that was the one thing that they were all promised.
Well, I mean, it's also kind of tragic because from what I understand, it is like highly implied, right? That the old woman in the in the Golden City that he meets, right? The nice old woman is effectively his mother. Yeah, sure, they can't. The immortals can't reproduce on their own, but obviously the genetic template had to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And it is definitely disturbing to see the guy in the coffin-like pod, right? Just getting that that hit of dopamine directly into his brain for no other reason than he just sat in the pod, right? it is kind of unsettling, right?
What makes it worse is that we don't even know how long he was in the pod. When we first see the apartment in the pod, when we see the Golden City get destroyed later on, he's still in the pod.
So yeah, let's move. The one thing I will say, I do wish I was a little bit more clear, because I did have to put in a bracket explaining that it's like Darwinism doesn't make a claim about what the higher state is. The higher state is not like, is not an objective higher state above everything else, right? The higher state is just simply the more adapted to survival state in that given situation. So even the idea of what is the fittest, i.e. perfection, is itself subject to a dialectical process that changes based on history, right? So. And you can't really reject. Darwinism does necessarily lead to social Darwinism. The only way to avoid social Darwinism is to, again, add ad hoc like presuppositions that are not justified by Darwinism in itself, into the system. And it's like, you're telling me that like Darwinism functions for the like everything else, for like the evolution of entire species, and it even works to explain things like the development of culture through mimetics, right? But it doesn't work on class evolution. That just doesn't make any sense, right? It seems like that would be the logical middle point between mimetics and biological Darwinism. It's the idea that like if certain classes are promoted in that they are more successful in reproducing themselves, even if it's just like, even if it's not biological reproduction, even reproducing themselves in the sense of like, again, getting more people into that particular class and then propagating the class, right? It seems like that would be a logical extension of Darwinian thought into sociology.
These people don't understand class systems and how much that it fits into their narrative. All they run on is feels.
I mean,
which is against what they basically preach.
I mean, to be fair, sociology is a fake science, but you know, right? Oh my god.
Gay.
All right. So yeah, that would be the one thing is I would.
The fun type of gay.
That would be the one thing I would definitely want to change about this if I had the chance. Would be I would love to be able to like cooperate with someone to like make a better version of this essay. I already think this essay is probably solid, generally as a first essay. But I would like to in the future possibly come back and redo this essay, hopefully with like actual video and audio, and figure out how the hell to get past the censor, right? But that's for a.
If only you were part of some sort of community that could help you with that.
Oh no, I am aware. I am alluding to that, right? But anyway, that would be a
good way to force them to actually watch the series.
Oh, good lord, right? I do need to get like I do need to get something to rip my Blu-rays though, because that would definitely help to gain footage, right? But anyway, let's continue.
4. The Spellbound Partner Killer. There is one area where the Jian imagery is complicated: aggressive mimicry, where the predator imitates the prey to lure them in to be consumed. This has no mythic basis, but is a visual metaphor I propose to examine 02 as a partner killer. Given how the pairing of the pistil and stamen, literally named after the reproductive organs of a flower, are meant to emulate and subtly mock the complementarity of man and woman in marriage, this has implications for how 02 was treated at the beginning of the series. She is assigned to pair with various men to co-pilot with her, but no one ever lasts more than 3 rides with her, as she ends up consuming their life force. 02's whole motivation is to find her darling, and to become the same kind of being that her darling is so that they can be together. Ape, in assigning these stamen to her, are instrumentalizing both her and the stamen. The stamen know very well that pairing with her is a death sentence, but the value of their life is defined by their usefulness to the cause. None of these men she was paired with saw her as a person with intrinsic dignity, nor did they see value in their own life. Hero was the first stamen to see 02 as a person, not an instrument, and this is what drew 02 to him. And her presence brought him to life in a way that the cult he was raised in never could. But I titled this section Spellbound because that's what 02 is. You see, the way that Gnostic wizards operate is that they become the very archonic demiurge they claim to be against, and by negating the real, convince their victims that the real is actually a creation of an archonic demiurge, while the wizard's hyper-reality or false reality is mistaken for the real itself. 02's whole motivation is that if she kills enough Klaxosaurs, then Ape will make her human, something Ape never had any intention of even trying to do, since she, as the clone of the Klaxosaur princess, and therefore a falsified claim to natural authority, is too useful to ever give up. It's a dark fairy tale logic, like the Little Mermaid who believes suffering will buy her humanity, except Ape never intended to grant 02 her wish. A deception spun by adults for a little girl whose only beautiful thing was a picture book she couldn't read, and the memory of a boy who treated her as if she was precious in herself. A memory wiped from the boy's mind, but which survived brainwashing away in the girl. A slip-up that Dr. FranXX allowed because he sees the value in memories of being beloved, both in themselves and as instruments of manipulation. Of course, 02 doesn't know that Hero is the same boy she's looking for, and manipulates him for the purpose of finding the boy she beloves. And she almost kills him, ironically, in pursuit of him. The climax of the midpoint of the story is when the memory manipulation both Hero and Zero Two were subjected to finally cracks through a psychic connection. When Hero realizes that he is Zero Two's darling from her memories, and in sharing that memory with her, she stops from feeding off his life, and his life is spared. Zero Two is racked with guilt and shame through a series of misunderstandings rooted in them seeking each other out and meeting again under terribly miscommunicated circumstances. They separate. But deep down, they still love each other, and eventually, Hero finds his way back to the girl he loves and who has always loved him. They reconcile through tears and mutual apologies, and their relationship is stronger after both take accountability for their own faults in humility towards each other. On a side note, all the Ichigo haters are utterly unreasonable. I'm not sure why people have a hard time understanding that her reluctance to give her best friend and crush over to a woman who has a history of killing her partners, who is demonstrably inhuman, and even more especially when she almost killed him, factoring in all of what little information Ichigo actually had to go on in any given situation, she demonstrated remarkably reasonable judgment. The issue isn't with Ichigo's reasoning, but the facts and how they were presented to her at any given time. Section 5.
All right, what's your assessment of that section?
The only type of commentary I have to actually give that is constructive is the reason why for all the Ichigo haters for that of this type of thing is an issue I've seen happen quite a lot is that the reader slash viewer in this case is taking information that they have in order to make a judgment that the characters themselves don't actually have. It's like, yeah, we the viewers know basically why have at this point in time learned why Zero Two is the way how she is, why she been hunting down so much for her darling, and why her and Hero are so good, need to actually be together. But Ichigo, yeah, she doesn't know any of this. All the information she has is basically Zero Two is a monster. She kills her partners. She nearly killed Hero here, and also the first time that they gone together, piloted together, and that's everything she's kind of running with.
Yeah, I would agree. I do think that it's that kind of solipsistic reasoning where it's like you forget that like what you know doesn't necessarily correspond to what other people know, right? You just assume that everyone has the same knowledge set, which is something that does happen quite often. Because if we don't really think about this kind of these kind of things, it's just kind of easy to forget that again there's an asymmetry of knowledge between what we the viewer get to see and what the characters themselves get to operate under. But you can see this sort of solipsistic reasoning occur in real life too, where people just assume that they're on the same page instead of stopping and actually like talking with each other, right? So
yeah, like how many conversations, how many of these conversations slash debates get derailed by the fact that it's like both people, while saying the exact same thing, are speaking two different languages.
Well, I mean, that goes to the esoteric exoteric distinction oftentimes, right? Or some kind of like distinction in, again, like I don't want to say idiolect because idiolect doesn't match what I'm talking about. It has a very distinct definition on its own. But like again, they're defining words differently, so they're using the same language, but they mean different things in the process, right? So, but yeah, that goes with like the kind of solipsistic reasoning I think Mentis Wave has mentioned before. So if I can find that, I will link the Mentis Wave video on solipsistic thinking in the description, because again, I think that's actually really useful to keep in mind, especially as a literary critic, to keep in mind that again, you know a lot more. What you know and what the character knows in a story are not the same thing. And that doesn't just carry.
Sometimes the character,
yeah.
Sometimes the characters are given hints on things to happen long before they showcase it to the reader, here to bring forth a case of mystery. Other times, the readers get information that the characters don't know in order to help straighten the drama.
Yeah, but I would imagine again, if you're paying attention to the story, like then again, the whole idea behind the Ichigo haters. It wouldn't really be all that reasonable, because again, if you understand that she's working on different information that you yourself as the viewer are operating under, that you should be able to understand where Ichigo is coming from. She's not acting out of malice. She has a genuine reason to be concerned, which is why it's, again, I probably should have mentioned solipsistic reasoning in this particular section that probably would have made that section slightly stronger.
We've seen from the Dragon Ball fans, fans don't actually watch the media that they like.
Don't fuck with Dragon Ball fans. We don't actually watch the show. Oh my god. We gotta set up a watch thing for Darling of the Franxx sometimes. I'd really like to rewatch it, but let's continue.
Verm as a villainous bodhisattva. Verm is a twisted bodhisattva, the dark spiritual architect behind Ape itself. His goal is the so-called liberation of souls from the prison of material reality, and he won't rest until all life in the universe is exterminated and only disembodied spirit remains. In his eyes, our bodies, our relationships, even our very selves estrange us from true being. So in exchange for giving up everything, he offers a gentle, everlasting pleasure. This is Vogelin's Gnosticism in its purest form, a spiritual scheme that treats existence itself as a mistake and promises salvation through total dissolution, cutting at the heart of Buddhist soteriology, which seeks the extinction of the Atman or self. As with the Mahayana compassion, which stays engaged with the world to relieve suffering and guide others towards enlightenment through self-extinction, Verm's project is purely destructive. He seeks to obliterate embodiment itself. But mankind, led by Zero Two and Hero, rejects this nihilistic gospel outright. We aren't simply spirits trapped in bodies, we are embodied spirits, by nature and by purpose. A human spirit without a human body is as incomplete as a human body without a human spirit. And this series refuses to pretend otherwise. As Hero and Zero Two venture out to confront Verm on his own homeworld, the children back on Earth do something astonishing. They pray to some power they don't even know, not just that Hero and Zero Two will succeed, but that they'll come back alive. It's one of the most moving moments in the entire series, the rediscovery of prayer as a living act of hope. And it turns out prayer is efficacious, because at the very end, after enjoying the stars together, Hero and Zero Two are reborn on Earth, meeting each other again for the first time, to start over and find love once more as embodied beings. This is not framed as a tragedy or some error of clinging to samsara. It's portrayed as a reward. Their new relationship is no longer represented by the jian, that fragile bird that can only fly when paired, but by the fenghuan, the Chinese phoenix, another bird composed of two complementary opposites joined into one to fly. To drive home that this is a reward for embracing life, love, and complementarity, even unto death, Zero Two's deepest wish is actually granted. In her new life, she finally gets to participate in the very humanity she fell in love with through Hero's agapic compassion. Remember, because she was a Klaxosaur, Zero Two couldn't have children with Hero. Now, she gets to meet him again and start over. It's important to note that this ending is somewhere between a reincarnation romance, like in What Dreams May Come, and a resurrection story. Yes, technically they're reincarnated, but they're also unmistakably themselves in a way that transcends typical metaphysics in reincarnation. This is more like a re embodiment, a chance to start anew with a real continuity of identity. I'll dive into transformation later in this essay because this continuity actually says something profound about the Klaxosaurs too, and how they're simultaneously the same as us and different from humans in fascinating ways. But it's precisely Verm as a villain that made me decide to approach this series through a Vogelinian lens. The fact that Verm, a pure spirit, is the causal progenitor of the entire totalitarian system is deeply telling. This isn't just some Linnaean polemic about ideology. Verm, as a Gnostic wizard trying to eminentize the eschaton, lifts the whole story from a merely political dystopia into a spiritual drama. He ties the personal, the political, and the metaphysical together in a way most dystopian tales wouldn't even conceive. Honestly, it's hard to believe Studio Trigger didn't use Vogelin's work, because it's a fictionalization of his metaphysical framework almost to a T, especially since the very essence of a Luciferian spirit is rebellion against God, not for some noble cause, but simply for the crime of being itself. And like Lucifer's war in heaven, Verm's revolt drags entire worlds down the chain of being with him. And for anyone who thinks this reading might be a stretch, remember, Verm doesn't just show up from nowhere. He comes from a celestial world in deep time, 60 million years ago, and Earth is not the first planet he's waged this war against. We don't even know what Verm's original world actually was. Maybe he was once a race that tried to transcend their bodies, like in Childhood's End. Or, as I suspect, maybe that was simply the first world to fall to his vampiric seduction. Oh, and on that note, something interesting. My brother actually pointed this out to me while we were watching the series, and apparently it's intentional. I initially thought Verm was riffing off of Worm or Wyrm. The former has ties to parasites and detritivores, creatures that feed on death. The latter means dragon or serpent, harkening back to demonic imagination. But apparently, Verm and ape were derived by rearranging the letters in vampire and splitting them into two separate entities, which is brilliant because Verm is literally a spiritually undead entity that leeches the life force out of entire civilizations. As ape, he makes a monkey out of mankind. As Verm, he's a cosmic dragon raging against being itself. And as a vampire, he's basically Galactus, devouring entire worlds to sustain his endless march to the end of history. Even if the worm and worm echoes weren't deliberate, it's one of those profound synchronicities that happens when a story accidentally taps into humanity's deepest cultural memories. And in this way, Darling in the Franxx arguably transcends both A Brave New World and Plato's Republic by striking at the spiritual impulse beneath them. Its critiques are both implicit and explicit, cutting all the way down to its metaphysical roots. That's what makes Verm such a brilliant villain. He's not just some alien invader or cosmic hive mind. He's the perfect mythical composite of everything that hates life and being. The clearest distillation of the root of all utopian error. The ultimate problem isn't political or intellectual, it's spiritual. Section 5, Before Love.
Okay, so what do you think about that one?
It was good for the most part.
Yeah, I think
Like,
I could have probably done a little bit more to justify my the point I was trying to make here. But I think anyone who
like
is,
pointing out how at the end of the series it's clear that Zero Two has become human.
I mean, I already did say that in this section, but yes,
You implied it. You didn't actually outright said it.
yeah, I did. Hold on, I literally said that like she gets to participate in the same nature as her darling, like right here. But anyway, continue.
And also how the tree that they find each other was basically the tree planted before they went out and did this entire final clash with Verm.
That is a good point that I very definitely should have actually brought up. That actually is a good point. So yeah, I do think I probably could have added some more to the strengthen my point here. I do think anyone who watches Darling in the Franxx would probably hear this and be like, yeah, I could actually see this interpretation at least, right?
Oh, and another thing you should also mention is how originally it was Zero Two who went to go fight Verm alone, and later on, and after they realized that she, since because her body was still on Earth, but her spirit was inside the mech that went to go fight.
Yeah, the
Once when they
Sterlitzia.
realized that yeah, once when they realized that she was out there fighting the war by herself, they did everything they could in order to get to send a hero out to help her.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, that would have been a good point because it does tie into the point I make about marriage later in the essay, actually. Again, when I make video essays later, I'm definitely going to ask around the community for like advice for some of this stuff because I think that this is fine for like a first essay, but I can already see problems with my own essay and like its first, being that this is the first essay, right?
Yeah.
Okay, like for right here, I have the wrong caption for section 6 instead of section 5, right?
I don't know. It's like everyone's allowed to have one mistake. 3, get out of here.
Actually, it was the audio that was wrong. I just counted. The caption is correct. It was the audio that was wrong.
Like I said, 3 mistakes, get out of here.
From disorder to order. Towards the end of the series, the first child born naturally is given the name Ai, the Japanese word for love. a word these characters were never even taught. And that's not just a cute touch, it matters. Because the real driving force behind Darling and the Franks is the rediscovery of the four loves in a world that had completely forgotten them. Each of these loves plays an essential role in the anime, both in how it's properly expressed and how it's ideologically twisted. Let's start with agape. Agape is loving compassion, the willing the ultimate good of another, even at the cost of yourself. It's subverted right from the beginning. Remember how Hiro is spared his implied execution for failing to fulfill his role as a pilot and instead allowed to live among Squad 13? At first glance, that looks like mercy, but by the end of the series, we find out it wasn't compassion at all. It was pure utilitarian calculus. He was only kept alive for the potential gain he might still offer the system. That's not agape. Then there's Storge, the love between family members. Ape twists even this. Papa is the only parental figure the children have ever known, and he's worshipped in place of God. They believe he controls the weather, brings them health. He's replaced God the Father with himself, usurping universal paternity. Outside Squad 13, there's no real sense of family at all. And even within the squad, it's something they had to painfully discover on their own. It wasn't given to them. In the flashbacks, Hiro instinctively treated the other children like siblings, but the adults immediately discouraged this impulse. The only family narrative allowed is that they're all Papa's children, born not to flourish, but to die for him. Now let's look at philia, friendship. Even this is systematically suppressed. In the garden, the children were actively discouraged from forming bonds. They weren't even allowed to give each other nicknames, because names humanize. Names make you someone, not something. And that's central to the Hegelian and post Hegelian view of history and using individuals for larger dialectical ends. Philia is replaced by solidarity. Before we tackle Eros, the most misunderstood of the four loves, we need to define what love actually is. People confuse the experience of limerence for love. That powerful, all consuming passion that can wreck marriages? That's not love, that's limerence. It doesn't last. As I once had to explain to a friend, limerence exists just long enough to make a baby. That's it. Real love was better understood by the old scholastics. Love is not a passion, but a decision, an act of the will. To love is to will the supreme good of another. Now, let's talk about Eros. Ape quite literally weaponizes Eros. They instrumentalize it for their own theosophical ends, not letting it bloom naturally, but managing it to serve the state. Think about it. Two pilots are paired off, male and female. Their cockpit's positions are blatantly Freudian, and if they want to change partners, they have to get permission from the chain of command. The message is clear. Your relationships and deepest desires are subordinate to state control. Even the doggy style imagery of piloting the FranXX plays into this. It reduces Eros to animal instinct, subtly mocking Eros by portraying it as something that debases you into a beast, which makes sense given how thoroughly Ape dehumanizes the pilot. They're stripped of names, reduced to numbers, and literally called parasites. By reducing something as sacred and deeply human as Eros to an instrument for operating a tool of war, Ape strips Eros of its mystery, its dignity, and turns it into just another function of the state, literally treating the union of man and woman as nothing more than means to usurp authority over the FranXX. This is exactly what Vogelin was critiquing, taking something transcendent and forcing it into the service of utopian schemes. It's also why puberty and the sex drive are suppressed in the adults. The only reason Hero and Zero Two's bond is allowed at all is because, as Dr. Franks explains, when the male and female factors combine and their hearts become one, the Iron Maiden will reveal her true form. In other words, it was just more advantageous for Ape to allow this arrangement because it allowed them to advance their anti human goals. That doesn't mean that Ape has any positive view of it. And yet, despite Ape's best efforts, Eros breaks through. Kokoro instinctively sees the birth of new life through natural means as something good in itself, embodying hope in human life. Not just symbolic immortality, but the fulfillment of her deepest telos, to nurture. Her hope is quickly crushed when she's caught with an introductory book on pregnancy, which is treated as subversive pronatalist contraband. Because if you're going to control human evolution, you have to seize the means of reproduction. forbid procreation, and you can fabricate each new generation exactly as you want it. Eros and Storge together are so dangerous to the Gnostic project that Ape sends literal secret police to arrest Kokoro and Mitsuru for trying to marry. They even authorize lethal force. Because, in the Gnostic view, if the material world is evil and the abstract or Platonic realm alone is good, then marriage, which quite literally unites bodies to create more embodied life, becomes intrinsically evil. This is because the embodied love of another places us within our bodies, and a good family offers a reason to live in the real, to reject the hyper-reality. That's why it must be controlled and subverted from its natural ends. A good family roots you in reality. It gives you something so worth living for that you'll reject the hyper-reality Ape is selling. That's why it must be controlled. When Kokoro and Mitsuru's memories are wiped, it's played straight as horror. It's so horrific that it drives Squad 13 to openly reject Papa, declare that he's no longer their Papa, that they know he's no god. And how do they know he's no god? Because they finally see how he estranges man from himself, cutting them off from themselves as embodied beings and personalities with continuity from past to present rooted in reality. By the end of the series, Storge returns to its proper place with the birth of the first newly natural generation. Most notably, the birth of love, a word we were never taught. This series isn't subtle about Eros either. Although sexual undertones baked into piloting the FranXX actually make thematic sense. It shows that sex divorced from love is ultimately hollow. We see this when the crew tries swapping pistols and stamens to experiment with new pairings. It completely undermines their function because Eros can't just be assigned. It has to be freely experienced and chosen. That's the entire point behind Mitsuru leaving Futoshi for Kokoro, or Hiro rejecting Ichigo for Zero Two. Love isn't compelled by arrangement. Even Ichigo's gentle rejection of Ikuno's lesbian affection shows that. They all play out differently, and each person is rejected for different reasons, but their being assigned to each other does not obligate them to each other. These are kids who weren't taught about Eros, whose puberties were actively suppressed so that they could become human sacrifices. Of course, rediscovering something as primal and wonderful as Eros would lead to in group tension. Hell, it causes exactly that among us who live in a world which actively remembers Eros. But by the end of the series, Eros finds its proper place again, as humanity rediscovers love, marriage, and childbirth. This series also rejects the fantasy of soulmates. Souls are not bound together through fate to be with each other. Love is a decision that requires recommitment over and over again. And if your first passionate love rejects you, you can find love again. Ichigo becomes a mother long after she loses any chance to be together with Hiro. Futoshi is happily married with his own children. Ikuno gives up her chance for a relationship so that her friends, the closest thing she's ever had to a family, can live normal lives beyond their pre programmed lifespans. It's a profoundly pro human view. There's one episode in particular where the stakes implicit in the complementarity of man and woman is made apparent. One which illustrates that gender class conflict is an artifice and intrinsically anti life. I usually hate boys versus girls episodes because they're usually vacuous, unfunny, and downright antithetical to the reality of the relationship the sexes have with each other. But Darling in the Franks does this microplot brilliantly. Partly because no one is totally at fault once you remember that the characters have a limited understanding of each other and events, but also because the interaction between Hero and Zero Two is utterly delightful throughout it. But what makes it shine is how it ends. All their petty conflicts are suddenly dwarfed by the truth. They literally need each other to survive. They found out the previous Squad 13 was completely wiped out. There are now consequences for failing to cooperate with each other. Death. Not through state imposition, but from the fact that they need each other. Cooperation doesn't guarantee survival, but a lack of it guarantees their life's end. Turns out, man and woman aren't rivals. They're complementary. Genesis, Aristophanes' myth in Plato's Symposium, even basic biology. All of it tells us the same thing. Split them apart, and you go extinct. There is no hypermasculine hero or girl boss hero who can save the world. The continued existence of the human race is predicated on the mutual cooperation of the two sexes. That's not up for discussion. And this is the reality of the human race. Every generation of good parents is a guardian at the gates, holding back the barbarians and the void of extinction all at once. Remember, just as the Gnostic wizards in Plato's allegory of the cave threatened to kill the escapee should he return to free the others still trapped, when the parasites attempt to hold a wedding, Ape sends men with guns to kidnap the bride and groom and subsequently alter their memories, making them forget they were ever in love at all. And once again, the horror of reproduction divorced from love is highlighted. Kokoro finds out she's pregnant but doesn't remember what pregnancy is, how it happened, or who the father is. Meanwhile, there's also a profound horror on the other side. Mitsuru discovers he's the father, but has no idea how it came to be. Then, in a horrifying scene, Kokoro learns she can't pilot anymore unless she aborts the child she doesn't even remember conceiving. And the adult nurse with clinical coldness refuses to advise her either way, abandoning her to a horrible state of confusion and conflicting obligations. Either care for this child and become powerless to protect your friends, or kill this child and continue to protect your friends. This is the same girl who felt called to motherhood after finding a book in the ruins, who argued that motherhood was ontologically good even when Ape branded it subversive, who seduced Mitsuru out of a genuine longing to create something that would endure after they were gone. Ultimately, Kokoro decides to keep the child, no matter what. Mitsuru chooses to stay by her, not out of obligation, but because he wants to. They want to love this child, however it came into the world. They want to leave something behind. They want to love this child. And that's why this is a fundamentally pro human, pro natalist, pro life anime. It affirms without shame that romantic passion, human life, marriage, and childbirth are all intrinsically good. Firm believes that being itself is a crime, disguising despair as enlightenment, but Kokoro and Mitsuru choose hope over extinction. Even Dr. FranXX, who rejected so much of his humanity, still performed an act of agape, saving thousands of failed parasites from extermination by locking them in suspended animation. A twisted soul, yes, but still capable of metta, the Buddhist word for loving compassion. Section 6. Sakaike.
All right, what do you think about that one?
Okay, it's a little bit off topic, but I do want to actually mention it. It's like that whole entire boys versus girls episode. Again, as you said, I absolutely despise when those appear inside shows, but this was the best iteration I have ever seen of that plot, that type of trope.
I would agree.
So,
Like
that was that was a humongous benefit for this entire series.
yeah.
With the exception of one other series, Total Drama Island Season 1, and it's like every single time I've seen in a series attempt this, it's always horrible. Something it makes the episode and actually weakens the series.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest.
Basically,
I've actually never seen Total Drama Island, so I have seen it, but it's so long ago that I could not remember anything about it. And I'm pretty sure I've never seen this particular episode. So, oh my god, I had to suppress that perp. But yeah. So it's like I have no idea what this is. I guess I'll look it up and watch it after this stream. Yeah, no, I can't stand boys versus girls episodes. If it was like playful, that's one thing,
okay, so
but it's very clearly ideologically subversive almost every time I've ever seen it.
again, a little bit off topic, but we'll get back onto topic after I say it's like the thing about Total Drama Island's boy versus girl episodes, the thing that makes it good is that unlike all these others, everyone is still in character. You don't see anyone acting out of character, doing something that they normally wouldn't do or couldn't do beforehand. So, while it's actually pretty good, it's basically a drop in the bucket compared to Darling and the FranXX Boys versus Girls episode.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is kind of hard to beat the Darling and the FranXX one because it's actually meaningful. Like, it's not a distraction from the main plot. It actually moves the main plot forward, right? It helps to explain how it is they, continue on the practice of getting this shit together, right?
But for the most part, I do agree with what you're saying. There is one piece of information that I would add in that pretty sure you do know, but you probably kind of forgot about when basically making this entire video essay.
Okay.
And that's basically Kokoro's name. In Japanese, it means heart.
I mean, yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
Yeah, so
I probably should have delved into the names at some point in this, but yeah, the only one I really focused on was the fact that like the names are numbers, and I probably should have gone more into like what they actually like, because they're both double meaning names. So it's like I probably should have gone into the double meaning of these names and how they like communicate something about the characters per se and the world around them. Because again, it's the children who were given their names by Hiro, not by Papa. So it's like what, so it's names being made for the parasites by a fellow parasite, right? But yeah, like it was just a thing that I didn't really pop up except for, you know, with I, because it seemed like the most important name to me, because it was like the name of the first child born naturally and the circumstances around that particular family, right? But yeah, I agree. If I had, I probably should have delved into the names, because there's a lot to work with there. Okay.
again, it's like that's kind of the only thing I can add for this section.
Yeah, I suspect that again. Like, feel free to tell me anything that you think that if I were to go back and try to remake this essay, you think I should add. And you know, when we get around to
obviously, as I said, the hunter names aspect of these characters.
Well, yeah,
Something that
that goes without saying, right? We just discussed that, right?
yeah.
But yeah, if I ever get around to like remaking this essay, I would prefer to make it like this, you know, structurally better than the way it is now, which I think it's fine. I think it gets my point across. I just think I probably could have gotten my point across better. As I've said earlier, like some of these I would probably go and rewrite slightly, but the entire reason for me publishing this in the first place was so that it would actually be published and I wouldn't just sit on it for all eternity, right? I had to exercise this particular thought out of my brain, right? Anyway.
Like for the most part, everything that you've been saying is basically good and says what you needed to say. And like again, it's like the most I can give advice for something for most of these sections is just rewording.
Yeah, I am definitely gonna, since I'm now in the, you know, a group with a bunch of people who do video editing and stuff like that, I'm definitely gonna ask about like how it is to navigate music and you know, the videos themselves, because I would like to at some point be able to make a video essay you know, to the same level as like Anime Philosopher that we talked about earlier, or, you know, Hiding in Plain Sight, or Super Eye Patch Wolf. They're not, obviously it's never going to be my main content because they take forever to make their episodes for a reason, right? But it would be like a nice little thing to have as like, oh yeah, this is also in the works kind of deal. You know, just to be like, hey, yeah, here's a reward for the people who like anime who happen to be following the channel, right? My views on this particular thing and like my justification for why this means this. And there's a couple of things that I could do it, and I mentioned like other things that would fit this particular lens of analysis at the end of the video. But yeah, so let's continue. I definitely, before I make my another anime analysis, I will be asking around about, like, again, how it is other channels get away with, again, using video and using audio. But that's for later, right? Let's continue.
That's a future work. We're doing now work.
Right? That's a future acosmic problem. We're currently dealing with present acosmic problems.
Okay, I can barely deal with past acosmic, let alone future and present.
Love is destructive. My favorite genre of anime and manga, when done right, is the seikaike, a genre of apocalyptic storytelling wherein the relationships of love within the cast decide the fate of the world. A notable example is Neon Genesis Evangelion, wherein the ending of the anime series, the films, and the manga, Shinji's decision to ultimately reject the Mahayanist design of the Human Instrumentality Project is informed by his relationship with his family, friends, and love interest. Another is Scrapped Princess, which revolves around a young girl, Princess Pacifica, who is fated to destroy the world on her 16th birthday. But it turns out that these stakes don't make her death any less catastrophic for the people who love her. Then there's the Big O, whose central plot hinges on breaking out of a time loop which is only possible through the relationships cultivated throughout the show. The ending features Roger Smith negotiating for the end of an eternally cycling despair with an angel, Big Venus, who is the memory of having been loved, and the Gnostic spell is finally broken, returning linear time from the tyranny of eternal recurrence. Evangelion's ending, especially the final movie, is entirely contingent on the relationship between father and son, a father in despair and a son alive with hope. The metaphor is about as subtle as a hammer to the face, but it's still a powerful story, made more powerful as it is the reflections of a man who was once in a deep despair, who has found his happiness. Moreover, Mari, a woman alien to despair, pulls Shinji out of the world of Evangelion and into reality as the world is being deconstructed around him. So a son's love for his father saves the world, but it was a girl's love for a boy which saved him. Depending on how strictly you define the term, you could bullshit Cardcaptor Sakura into this genre as well, given that the looming threat of everyone losing their memories of the people they love most is treated as a sort of end-of-the-world style threat. Darling in the FranXX takes this to another level. The four loves come together to oppose the Luciferian vampire who swallows worlds. Our heroes, a Mecha Jian with 02 as a mecha and Hero as a pilot, are the ones who actually defeat Verm, cheered on by the prayers of what remains of the human race back on Earth. The personal is made cosmic, and the cosmic destiny is contingent on the personal. This is because it is the essential nature of love that it is directed towards another. It cannot exist unless the other does as well. So love itself necessarily opposes the eschatological project Verm has set up, which would make love impossible. This here is why the Seikaike is the summit of apocalyptic literature. It is apocalyptic in both the sense that it involves the revelation of a hidden truth and the end of the world as we know it. But it does so in a way that unites the cosmic with the personal inextricably. Section 7. Till death do us part.
I know, shortest part of the the video essay. Your thoughts on this section?
Okay, I have a bunch to say about Mari, but I'll save that for another time because that'll probably give us more of the derailment than we've already have with some of the other parts.
Right.
Yeah. It's like I have a lot to say. I have a lot to say about her against basically people who hate the fact she ended up with Shinji. But
I
again, that's
fucking
for
love
another
Mari as a character, to be perfectly honest.
And before anyone says I'm a Mari defender, I thought she was okay when she first appeared.
Yeah, her first appearance was
I-
definitely something I was iffy about. Yeah, I don't know about this, but I think she earned her place by the end. Yeah.
Yeah, when she first appeared, I was neither a fan nor against her. But as she said, she earned her place. So, but other than that, I do agree with what you said here. The only thing I would add, and I think you might add in inside the next section, seeing the title, is the fact that the the final form of the mech used to defeat Verm is basically looks like 02 in a wedding dress.
Right. Yeah.
It is,
If it's not made obvious by the if it's not made obvious by the captions on screen right now, right?
yeah. But again, it's like that's kind of the only type of change, and that's the only type of thing I would suggest. But it's probably a moot point because looking at the title card for the next section.
Yeah, I mean, I had to put this in here because I remember overly sarcastic productions talk about like how into the world stories are sometimes difficult to like maintain your attention because again, it's so disconnected to anything that like you care about because you care about the characters more than you do about the world, right? So then like when there's a certain point where the scale of the danger is just completely disconnected from the scale of the cast, and it becomes as a result hard to maintain that connection to the story based on just like again the scale. And I think Seikaike as a tradition is actually the answer to that one. If you want to tell apocalyptic stories, is again tie the apocalyptic, so like the end revelation and the fate of the world, if you will, right? If you want to use the classical and modern version of the word apocalypticism, to the personal, relationships of the cast. And again, there's plenty of stories we can talk about. Like I'm pretty sure there are ones that you can think about off the top of your head that I didn't mention in there that would very clearly fit the Seikaike, genre, and are actually quite well done, right?
Probably possibly, but if I can't name them off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure I do know them.
I would imagine.
I can't really name them.
I would imagine most of like the B train, like Girls with Guns stories, like all three of them probably qualify as Sekai in this response, right? Because it's like again, it's the relationships they cultivate that tie into the ultimate eschatological project and their rejection of the Gnostic ploy, which would have destroyed the world. So it's like just like off the top of my head, there's that. So, I mean, like to an extent, would Kill la Kill qualify as this? I'm curious now. I'd have to think about that. But yeah, it depends on like how. Oh, wait a minute. I can think of one that actually, off the top of my head, is actually under thought about in Sekai K. Serial Experiments Lane.
I should have seen that would be the one that you brought up.
Because like how Alice comes in to like help the Lane make her decision is definitely like again the apocalyptic being contingent on the personal, right?
And for those of those who are wondering what I meant by my statement, Cosmic here has kind of a habit that when he basically gets hooked onto a series, he gets hooked onto it heavily.
I mean, to be fair, Serial Experiments Lane is a great show, but I also understand it is like very dense at times, right? It is not an easy show. It is not an easy series to watch, right?
Look, I remember when the second these Ava rebuild movies of Ava came out, and you basically watched the hell out of the second movie like three times a day in a week.
Well, I highly doubt it's that much, but I have watched Evangelion like a dozen times, so it's like not just the rebuilds. I have also watched the original series multiple times, right? Because I love Evangelion. Yes,
I was being a little hyper.
Yeah, you're being hyperbolic. Yeah.
Yeah, but the sad part is not that much of a hyperbolic outspeak.
I do, yeah, I do know quite a lot about like Evangelion. I say again, it's my autism. I get to pick the special interest.
Yes, but the problem is you tend to actually pick everything. You need to pick a lane.
Pick a lane, damn it. Okay, fair enough. Let's go back to the. All right, you got your roasting. Let's go back to the section 8. Right now we get to talk about marriage.
I've enjoyed my fair share of romances. Toradora, My Fair Lady. But if I'm honest, I've never found them all that convincing. My belief in the love of the characters was more like suspending disbelief, the same way I believe Superman can fly, or totally buy into a VTuber's kayfabe. It's not that I thought their love was impossible within the story, it's that I struggled to believe such love could exist in reality. Then came Darling in the FranXX. It didn't just suspend my disbelief, it put forth an argument for love so profound that to this day I haven't been able to rationalize it away. I'm not going to get too personal, but when you see love destroy men and women alike, it becomes easy to conclude that love, at least as romantics speak of it, doesn't really exist. That maybe Schopenhauer was right, and love is just a cruel trick nature plays on us, a hunger designed to torment us into carrying on the cycle of pain. Growing up, my philosophical education was absurdist despair. It wasn't until I went to college that I was introduced to thinkers who could dismantle the absurdist hyper-reality that spellbound me, and even then, I'm constantly having to fight against the Gnostic impulse to despair, because the wounds of absurdism or cosmic orphanhood run deep. But there's another philosopher whose thought is even more dangerous to nihilism than Vogelin's, C.S. Lewis. Lewis argued from the very purpose of desire. He pointed out how every innate human longing points to something that can satisfy it. Hunger proves the reality of food. Thirst proves the reality of water. Breathlessness proves the reality of air. Apply this to the four loves. The desire for friendship points towards the existence of philia. The desire for familial approval points to the existence of storge. The desire for a family points to the existence of eros. And the desire for mercy points to the existence of agape. Moreover, they point to some unknown thing that can satisfy such desires. And the desires to find a complement points to the complementarity of man and woman. That's why I know, in the marrow of my bones, that there exist women who can genuinely love men. Because, as Lewis would say, I would not be haunted by this longing if there were not something real that could satisfy it. Darling in the FranXX was like a sledgehammer to my calcified heart. It reminded me of something I had tried to bury, that deep down, I wanted to find a woman worth living for, and worth waiting for on the other side of eternity, should I die before her. And I wanted to be the kind of man worth living for, worth waiting for, should she go before me. Someone worth dying for, so that it is beautiful to live. Someone who can tolerate my rough edges, and who I can tolerate the rough edges of. In short, I want to find my darling. And this is where Vogelin's critique of Gnosticism cuts deep, because the Buddhist and Schopenhauer are wrong. Just because desire leads to pain doesn't make it fundamentally evil. That's the oldest Gnostic instinct, to see suffering and conclude that being itself is a crime, to seek to unmake desire so we won't hurt. But as Vogelin would argue, this is to flee reality itself. It is suffering, rightly born, that purifies love. It's what transforms desire from mere limerence, that short lived passion designed only to last long enough to make a baby, into something transcendent. Ignoring the purgative function of suffering simply leads to a meaninglessness of suffering, which is unavoidable in life. Darling in the FranXX gets this. Hero and Zero Two's love is far from easy. They hurt each other, misunderstand each other, nearly kill each other. But in surviving these agonies, their bond doesn't break. It matures. Even if heaven is the ultimate fulfillment of the human heart, man has other desires to which his heart rightly longs. After all, Genesis tells us God made man in his own image, male and female he created them. We are made to complement each other. And so the show insists human life is good and the pursuit of life is also good. It needs no further justification than that. Watching this anime made me feel something I never felt watching romance. I'd spent much of my life trying to kill the lover archetype inside me, to amputate that part of myself that longed for union as a kind of psychological self defense. I now see this for what it was, a form of spiritual self mutilation. I'd been so afraid of love because of the monstrous ways I'd seen it twisted that I rejected love itself. After all, with lovers like that, who needs enemies? But the problems I observed weren't illusions, they are real. But through the same reasoning through which C.S. Lewis concludes God must exist in his argument from desire, I can confidently conclude that love must really exist as well. The thing is that Hero and Zero Two both keep their promise. Even when trying to protect each other, we'll be together forever. But what if we're torn apart? I'll come get you. There are times when Zero Two leaves not to pursue another love, but to protect the humanity of her beloved. But Hero always finds a way back to her. Why? Because he's her darling, and that means something. They need each other, because they love each other. Remember that it is only when the male and the female Jian lean on each other that they can take flight. And at the end, the Jian transmutes into another bird, the Feng Huan, the Chinese phoenix, another bird composed of two complementary halves joined together. You see, I cannot fathom how people honestly thought this ending was bad. They kept their promise, even to the bitter end. Of course, the wedding dress form of Sterlitzia, the sacrament of marriage made cosmic, Sterlitzia true apus, has to end with till death do us part. It was important that marriage, the bedrock of a realist, pro-human, pro-life society, be what overcomes the anti-realist, anti-human, anti-life, theosophical. It would not have worked for them to return to Earth as they were. Their keeping of the promise, in defiance of Verm's Gnostic despair, is key to the scene working as it does. In short, I don't care if people make fun of how unapologetically horny the show can be. That's the bloody point. In a world that is abstracting from the concrete, tearing the mind from the body, it's lovely to see a series which accepts passionate, embodied, libidinal, self-giving love. I say Darling in the FranXX is one of the greatest love stories ever written precisely because it bridges the phenomenological, sociological, political, and metaphysical concerns of love together, conjoining the interior with the literally cosmic seamlessly. Section 8.
All right, so there was my attempt at a super eye patch wolf and hiding in plain sight style. All right, we're gonna get a bit personal here, right? Man.
So how's that there for a partner going?
Right. Anyway, so back to the essay, right? But so what do you think about this particular section?
Yeah, it was pretty decent. And it's like, I do like the fact that you did try to bring in your own personal antidote into there, and also mentioning on how distorted people have been viewing love for quite a long time, and the fact that basically people are just hurting each other in their relationships rather than being partners. Keyword, and keyword to a lot of people. You need to be partners in a relationship.
Right? wild fucking like insight, right? You need to actually be invested in the well-being of the person you're in a relationship with. Fucking wild statement, right?
Yeah.
How anti-feminist? What do you mean? I can't just use and abuse? Right? How anti-Tate is straight? What do you mean? I can't just use and use for my own sake, right? Oh my god, two halves of the same retardation, right? Feminism and Tateism, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's kind of like the core, like, obvious, like, point of this section is, again, the till death is the defense of the ending, the till death do us part, because, like, I really do think that if they had returned to Earth alive, it actually would have hurt the story, to be perfectly honest. I think this is one of those times where it's like,
yeah, I 100% agree with you on that.
like, I can't really imagine, especially considering there was no way back. Like, they left to Verm's homeworld in a wormhole, specifically designed by the Klaxosaurs to bridge that gap because the gap was so large, right? It took the wormhole generator 60 million years to actually get from point A to point B, right? So it's like, yeah. I don't think we're going back. It's like, even it was pretty obvious that they weren't returning from this particular fight. But again, just on an ontological level, it's the till death do us part. The ultimate loyalty that was kind of key to, again, the pro-life message of this series, in my opinion.
And another thing that basically you didn't mention that I do think that is worth mentioning is that Zero, 2, and Hero, they are not perfect partners. They both have their own flaws, and that's actually...
Well, to be fair, they almost kill each other at one point. That's not, yeah.
They all... yeah. But again, that's kind of going to wild things. Like, because a main issue when it comes to modern relationships is that they assume that their partner has to be perfect, otherwise, or else it's not the perfect partner for them. And like, you've seen basically the criteria both genders tend to have when it comes to, like, the type of partner that they want.
Yeah, it's implicitly rooted in the soulmate ideology, right? The idea that there was someone who was made literally for you, even if we don't explicitly say it. That's the underlying assumption, right? And it's like, very obviously that's not true, right?
Yeah, but as you said, it's like, and as I was saying, that Zero, 2, Hero, they aren't perfect people, and that's kind of the point. Your partner is not going to be your partner, the person that you want to be with. You're never going to find a perfect person. There are always going to be flaws. There's always going to be some issues, but in a true partnership where both people are actually wanting to help each other, you have to find the person you're willing to be hurt by in order to help better you both together.
I think Mentis Wave. Yeah, I think Mentis Wave actually gives really good advice for, like, people looking for relationships in general. First of all, you have to be that kind of person that would attract the kind of person that you're looking to get, right? So it's like, first of all, you have to make yourself into the kind of person that would attract that person in the first place, right? But at the same time, that's not enough. You have to actively work for the best interest of the person that you are actually in a relationship with. In a sense, not, placing their needs oftentimes in front of your own, right? Because again, you exist to complement each other, to help each other, right? So yeah, I do think Mentis Wave, if I could find that video, that actually would make a really good addition to the list of citations. But I think that he does give really good practical advice about all this stuff.
Again, as I said, it's like, you need to find the partner that you're willing to be hurt by.
Yeah. I think
Not saying that you to be in an abusive relationship, but something that's like, yeah, there are going to be times you're going to argue, you're both going to hurt each other, but you know going into this that this is going to happen,
yeah.
and that you both can grow better and grow strong together.
I think if anyone I think we could just discard anyone who genuinely misunderstood what you said there as like an actual retard. To be perfectly honest, like that's like one of those statements where it's like it's so obvious what's meant that a qualifier isn't justified. If you need the qualifier, you actually shouldn't be allowed to vote. Good lord, man! Right? Fucking, it's like that's like that was like a fucking like can they perceive breakfast fucking style statement right there. Oh my goodness. Woo. Okay, fair enough, right?
Yeah.
But so yeah, it's like obviously this was like my attempt to make good on the promise of giving a personal touch to this, but it's kind of hard to thread that personal touch without basically trauma dumping on someone. It's like, oh yeah, these are the things that happened to me. It's like, why are you trauma dumping on me? I'm not. You literally asked me, right? It's like, and then like if you tell someone the things that have happened to you that are bad, even if you're actually fine with it, you've actually gotten over it, right? It's like, yeah, I've come to peace with this stuff, right? And then people just like assume you're trauma dumping on them. It's like, no, this is just something that happened to me, and I'm actually genuinely fine with it now, right?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of hard to thread that balance, especially like, yeah. So it's like I was like, you know what? At this point, I could probably outline more specific, with some specificity that would actually help my case. But at the same time, it's like, it's not really necessary, to be perfectly honest. First of all, no one is going to really benefit from the point because I can just make the generalized point and people can either agree with me or disagree with me, right? So it's like, yeah, fair enough.
It's a difference. It's a difference between putting in his like information that's needed or just putting information just to bloat the video.
Yeah, I kind of figured one, it would bloat the video because again, it's not strictly necessary. But at the same time, it's like, well, no one is really due this information anyway, right? So it's like, yeah. No one really wants this information. No one's really due this information. So it's like, and I don't really need to get it off my chest because I've already gotten it off my chest. So it's like, there's no real reason to like include this. I'm just talking about like a state of my life that I had been in. So it's like, yeah, fair enough. I can just leave it as a generalized observation and just leave it at that, right? So it's like,
yep.
Yeah, so that's why I did that particular. That's why I did that way. Well, we're almost at the.
I just have one question to say about all this. Why are you trauma dumping on me?
Right. Oh my goodness, right? It's like what hurt you? Well, you see, it all happened when I saw a friend of mine who was hurt so badly they became I'm kidding, right? Just make up some fucking outlandish statement. It's like,
hey, wait a minute, I know that person. That's you.
Oh my god, right? Anyway, so let's get back on it, right? Got this.
Need this to be a 6-hour video.
Right. Well, I mean, we're not even going to hit 2 hours from the pace. Oh, yeah, we're not even going to hit 2 hours from this pace. So,
after the death of God inevitably comes the murder of man. One line that stood out to me came from one of the foundational members of Ape, Werner Frank, who confessed to being an atheist. The series doesn't much mention religion explicitly, but that doesn't mean that the negation thereof is meaningless, especially in light of the Voglinian undertones of this series. In fact, their mentioning of it as part of the formative background of their Himmler figure is quite interesting. Eric Voegelin in Science, Politics, and Gnosticism put it this way: the nature of a thing cannot be changed. Whoever tries to alter its nature destroys the thing. Man cannot transform himself into a Superman. The attempt to create a Superman is an attempt to murder man. Historically, the murder of God is not followed by the Superman, but by the murder of man. The deicide of the Gnostic theoretician is followed by the homicide of the revolutionary practitioners. We see this all the time in dystopian fiction. Once the real is denied, human life is no longer sacred, and man becomes raw material to be engineered. That's why Vogelin says the murder of God is followed by the murder of man. But this is where the essence accidents distinction comes into play. In scholastic vocabulary, the essence of something is what makes it what it is, its deepest nature. Its accidents are its outward, changeable features. A man can lose his hair or gain scars and still be a man. And this is what Zero Two is ultimately afraid of, that being with Hero will fundamentally transform who he is and therefore destroy the very humanity she fell in love with. Because remember, Hero is physically changing. His body is literally starting to resemble hers. So, from Zero Two's perspective, being together might erase the very humanity she cherishes in him. He is, after all, turning into a Klaxosapien after being the only Stamen to survive riding alongside her more than 3 times. And she's not unreasonable to think this because marriage does involve a subtle transformation. But outside of the symbolism and in the story itself, he survives her because he genuinely cares about her. No other Stamen ever has, and that makes the realization that Zero Two was herself instrumentalizing him to use him as, in her own words, fodder to find the darling she remembers who showed her loving compassion all those years ago, harrowing. She masked a predatory plan under a lover's guise, and that makes the moment of mutual revelation when Zero Two almost eats up all of Hero's life force, that Hero actually is that darling she was looking for, all the more heartbreaking. What follows is a flashback sequence which helps to show how cruel the Gnostic impulse to create utopia to break their way back into Eden is, how they dehumanize their parasites, and how exceptionally cruel they were to Zero Two. And in that flashback, we see that it was Hero who showed her love for the first time. It's beautiful, cute, and lovely in that tender way childhood friendships are, and it might be the most powerful forgotten childhood marriage promise subplot I've ever seen. They eventually reconcile with each other and grow closer to each other after the reconciliation, because Hero believes in the redemptive power of love. But even while Zero Two resigned herself to having lost Hero, she deep down was desperate that what they once had could be restored. And while he does not have the language yet to be able to articulate this, it's clear that Hero wants to marry Zero Two one day. And while the Klaxosapien distinction might make for an apparently meaningful sci fi distinction, in all the essential qualities, Zero Two has always been human, a rational embodied soul. Hero survives Zero Two's influence by slowly becoming what she is. Just as Zero Two teaches Hero how to be more human, Hero, in a sense, pulls Zero Two's Klaxosaur nature into the human nature by becoming what she is. And in many ways, Hero provides the very environment necessary for Zero Two to become more human herself through habit formation and love. Hero and Zero Two transform each other profoundly, but without destroying their deepest essence. Papa, on the other hand, seeks to transform man in such a way that destroys the very essence of man. It reminds me of the ending of Yuri Kuma Arashi, where at the end of the series, instead of forcing the beloved to change, both the lover and her beloved willingly allow themselves to change into what each other are, and that radical transformative act of self giving is the revelatory act which saves the relationship between them. And just to be clear, atheism doesn't automatically mean anti realism. Take Ayn Rand, a staunch atheist who was also a die-hard realist. Her philosophy, objectivism, insists that existence comes before thought and that thought is meant to understand reality, not reinvent it. Actually, among atheistic worldviews, objectivism probably has the healthiest relationship with our deep human need for transcendence, finding it in flourishing or eudaimonia, especially the kind of joy that says it might be better to die than to lose someone you love more than your own life. Why do I mention this? The movement towards a post scarcity transhumanism is an attempt to immanentize the eschaton, to drag heaven down to earth through human power and assume the role of God as creator of man in his essence. To use Karl Marx's own vocabulary, to make man into the creator of his own species being, that is, his own God. It was the death of God in his heart that made him vulnerable to Papa's manipulations. But Werner never gets to be God, and he's sidetracked and entranced by a beauty he cannot control to or truly understand. His love for the Klaxosaur princess is a desperate bid for all consuming Eros, something he suppressed during his engagement and even after the loss of his fiancée, as a test pilot for the first FranXX. In her, he sees something real, necessary, and intoxicating, and that lover archetype he suppressed deep down possessed him, again making him vulnerable to Papa's manipulations. In fact, Zero Two was made to subvert the role of the Klaxosaur princess herself, to serve as a false authority by which Papa can take control of the enemy through their own structures. Towards the end of the series, before the death of Dr. FranXX, we see a moment of grace from Zero Two, one which I don't think would have been possible prior to her relationship with Hero and Squad 13. She doesn't negate everything bad that's happened to her, but she thanks Dr. FranXX for having made her and calls him her father. This is the triumph of being as good over being as tragedy. Despite everything that happened to her, Zero Two believes deep down that it would have been better for her to have been born so that she could meet her darling than to have been spared all the horrors she was subjected to as that abused little girl. Section 9. The End.
All right, what do you think about my analysis there?
It was quite good. I honestly don't actually have any notes for that section.
Right. Don't touch that one is basically what you said, right? Yeah.
It's like the only type of suggestion I would have is probably to reword it a bit, but I honestly don't know how you would actually improve from rewording in that section.
I mean, to be fair, I hand wrote everything and I used ChatGPT to correct my punctuation errors, to be perfectly honest. It did reorganize some sentences where I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you know what? Fair enough. That is a better flow, and it says exactly the same thing that I actually wrote myself. So it's like, yeah. Some of these sentences...
What I hear is that you were cheating.
Yes, I was cheating, right? the AI apocalypse is coming. You best learn how to cheat, boy. Haven't you heard the singularity approaches, right? Oh my god. Fucking the AI tech bros are gonna take all our gerbs, right? I probably should have mentioned singularitarianism. Yes, and keep going.
And just to note, since because I know someone's going to take what I said out of context, but what I said was a joke. I'm actually all in support of him, a Cosmic using ChatGPT or whatever other AI he decides to use to help him.
Yeah, no, neither of us are anti-AI. We're actually both fully pro-AI. We're pro-human too, but we're also pro-AI. We don't think there's a contradiction in there. And actually, funny enough,
gerbs.
My gerbs, right? Oh my god. But I probably should have mentioned singularitarianism in here too, because the whole idea behind the technological singularity, which is, by the way, never going to happen to anyone who still believes it will, is basically just a secularized omega point. It is, again, another one of these, like, it has the same, like, ideological roots of transhumanism, the idea that like the very nature of man through the technological development will be utterly transformed into post-human, right? So yeah, you know, it's basically a secularized omega point, and again, omega point cosmology was condemned by the Catholic Church for a reason. It's not actually a Christian worldview. It is a very obviously hermetic worldview that's just steeped in Christian language, just like Hegelianism was, to be perfectly honest. So I probably should have added singularitarianism in there, but yeah, you know.
This entire section thing was actually quite good.
Yeah, do you think this one? It actually kind of sounds like you think this was the best section in the essay.
Oh yeah, I honestly, this was actually the best section.
Okay, fair enough, right? ChatGPT, ChatGPT, examine this examine this section, and you elevate the rest to this quality. Oh my god, right?
Of course, as we see here, there's still the end, so it may change, but I highly doubt it.
Yeah, no, the end isn't focused so much on Darling and the FranXX as much as it is like bringing the whole topic to like a close. Again, this is my first anime essay, so the ending was a little bit abrupt because like I've never particularly done this kind of thing before in a video essay. So I am looking. So if anyone's got any critiques about this, I am ears, right? So let's continue to the last section.
I hope by now I've done a good job at showing why Darling in the Franxx is one of the great works of anime, and that it's not merely beautiful, but deeply substantive in a way most media simply isn't. As you can tell, this series moved me deeply, and if you think that that's cringe, well, that's fine. If you're curious how Vogelin's critique of Gnosticism applies historically or contemporaneously, there's plenty of material out there, but as always, keep a discerning eye out as you explore this topic. I'll link to a bunch of resources below, but remember, we're all human and we all make mistakes. Too Long didn't read in his essay on the Gnostic substrate behind feminism as distinct from complementarianism, accuses Christianity of being a Gnostic religion, but he does so by failing to understand basic Christian metaphysics in doing so. A powerful counterpoint to this claim is indirectly found in Shameless Potpourri's video, How the Eucharist Defeated Gnosticism. Tick History has claimed that Augustine was a Gnostic, which is technically correct in that he was at one point a Manichaean, but that's precisely why Augustine was a pivotal figure in history for dismantling Manichaean errors. Plus, there's this strange propensity for atheistic Vogelinians like Tick History and Leonard Peikoff to be overly critical of Augustine to prop up Aquinas as some rationalist pillar, which Aquinas was, but Aquinas was also a mystic, and his most cited source in all his works is Augustine, not Aristotle, who he almost always referred to as the philosopher. So, if the foremost Aristotelian in history seems to think that Augustine is anti Gnostic, I think there might be an indication that Augustine has been fundamentally misunderstood somewhere down the line. And it's important to remind yourself that the world isn't run by some massive conspiracy, that the Gnostic infection can operate through intentional subversion, but also acts more like a virus, and that this viral nature of the dialectic substrate, its RNA, if you will, is key to its persistence and ability to adapt to camouflage itself. When I first found out about this out in the open history, it almost drove me mad for several months, but I had to continually remind myself to check my premises to ensure that I'm not simply seeing communists in my soup. Gnostic wizards are some of my favorite villains, and they pop up more often than you might suspect. It's just that they are rarely so on the nose as with Verm and Ape in Darling in the Franxx. I might return to analyze other media from a Vogelinian lens, but that won't be for a while because I am notoriously undisciplined. But there's plenty of media I could do with this. The Big O, Kill la Kill, Dot Hack Sign, Neon Genesis Evangelion, Fourth World, Soul Finder, Transistor, etc. Even Ultron and Thanos from the MCU qualify as crypto-Gnostic wizards, but I've never been a big fan of the MCU, being a comics purist and all. I'm not all that interested in rewatching films I didn't enjoy. So I'll eventually get around to making something probably equally as out of left field as this, but I can't make any promises as to what that might be. Until then, take care of yourself.
All right, so what'd you think about how that ended?
It was a decent enough ending for like a first video.
Yeah, again, I was definitely on the whole thing of like, I did definitely ask the AI. It's like, how exactly do I even end this analysis? Because like I have all my information, and I'm trying to figure out how to end the analysis, and it did not give me a very useful set of answers. So it's like, fuck it, I'll just do it myself, right? But
That's the thing about AI, and that's the thing about the AI for anyone who basically still questions why we're supportive of AI. It's like it's basically nothing but a tool.
yeah.
It's like, and like with everything, you're still always going to need the human touch.
But yeah, so I do have to, I did feel like I have to clarify, it's like some good resources to get into the whole conversation about Gnosticism in the modern day. So that's why I had that there. I might actually, for this video, considering that I've had questions about like what Gnosticism is in my previous videos, I might, because, you know, I did explain it earlier, and as you said, I probably could have explained it better by, I don't know, like just rewording some of the things I said and adding a little bit more information, maybe taking a couple things out that weren't explicitly necessary, right? So we'll probably put some extra information that's not directly cited in this video as like an introduction to Gnosticism in the modern day, and like some clarifiers to where it's like, you know, where people often go wrong kind of deal, right? But yeah. Again, as I said, there's a couple other shows that I could probably do the same kind of analysis for, but I think you would agree. Out of everything I mentioned, Darling in the Franxx has like the most on the nose criticism of Gnosticism of any of the things I pointed out. I think you would agree with that.
It's as subtle as a brick to the face.
And it's as subtle as a hammer to the face. I mean, like, you compare, like, obviously there's a implicit criticism of Gnosticism in Kill la Kill as well, but it's like, it's not nearly as on the nose as it is in Darling in the Franxx, right? Again, Big O's entire thing is escaping a Gnostic ploy, and it's like, again, it's subtle as a hammer to the face, right?
There's so many series we can actually apply this to, and it'll actually fit perfectly. But none of them are as in-depth or as on the nose as Darling in the Franxx was.
Yeah, like the entire core of, like, hell, even Nadia, the Secret of Blue Water, right? Like, the Gargoyle is a Gnostic wizard, but it's like, again, like it's more of like it focuses more on like the sociological element of Gnosticism in Nadia, the Secret of Blue Water. I think Darling in the Franxx is the only one I've ever seen that tries to cover it from a phenomenological, sociological, and even metaphysical perspective all at the same time, right? It's like even the political aspect, it's actually genuinely fucking wild how many angles and vectors they attacked the issue of like the Gnostic infection in this one show. So it's like, yeah, there are certain areas where Darling in the Franxx could possibly need some work, you know, like issues with pacing and that stuff. But it's like, first of all, no work is perfect, and it's like, this is still a masterpiece even with those things, because it's at that point that's a fucking nitpick, right? Because it seems to be misunderstanding what this show exists to do.
Yep.
Yeah. And even the pacing thing, I don't think you would when you, me, and Captain Terror and Senna Watermelon were all watching this, right? Like, you know, like, I don't think any of us had a complaint with the pacing, did we?
Not one bit, actually.
Yeah, it's like, that was never
This was one of the rarest.
Keep going.
This is one of the rare show. This is one of the rare shows I have seen where I have no complaints about the pacing for any of the episodes or any of the sections.
Yeah, it's like
Even some of the shows I absolutely positively adore. I have issues when it comes to basically pacing in certain episodes, scenes, or chapters. But this one, I didn't have any of that.
Yeah, it's like, again, you could come up with nitpicks, but I don't even know where I would nitpick this episode, this show, to be perfectly honest, to like change the pacing.
And the thing about the nitpicks is there are some things I would change if I was the one making this thing. But here's the question: would any of the changes I would make actually improve on the series?
Yeah, and that's the thing. People keep.
In my opinion, I don't think. In my honest opinion, I don't think I could fix any of the nitpicks I have, and the series would improve.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I also had to point out. Like, if I had to come up with, like, I said this with another thing too, at one point, where it's like, I could come up with nitpicks, but I genuinely don't know if those nitpicks would actually improve, if acted on, the product in any real tangible way, shape, or form, right? And this would be one of those things where it's like, if I really had to, I could probably sit down and come up with one, but I don't know. I don't even know where I would personally start with this, because again, I didn't have any complaints pacing wise. Watch this, and we fucking we fucking binged this, right? Like, we binged Darling in the Franxx. It's like every time we've watched it, we binged Darling in the Franxx, because it's like we sit down and we watch it, we want more.
It's like every single time we had to like look at the clock and we're like, holy cow, it's already this late. Yeah, we're going to have to put this on hold to finish the rest.
Yeah, it's like again, like when I showed Captain Terror the like Nadia, the Secret of Blue Water, and we binged all 39 episodes in 2 days, right? It was like, wow, that was fun, but also it was like we basically did that with Darling in the Franxx as well, right? It's like we basically watched that whole thing in 2 days. So it's like, yeah, it's like, we didn't exactly have an issue with the pacing, right? But I guess once you've experienced the Endless 8, which was good from an artistic perspective, but I will never watch that shit again. Oh my god. Oh, you remember Endless 8, don't you?
Yeah.
Holy crap. We powered. I think we actually got it worse, because there are some people who are like, imagine waiting week after week for this to show up weekly, and it's just like 8 episodes are the same episode, just reshot, literally beat for beat the same episode. I'm like, I will raise you one better. Imagine binging all 8 episodes in a row. Right? You think it was bad waiting for this shit? Well, imagine going through the whole thing all at once, right? Like I understood Keon at the end of that. To be perfectly honest, I'm like, damn, bro, it really do be like that. Eh? But I'll never watch that again, because it's like, it was great, but
I remember, yeah, it's like I remember when we were actually binging the Haruhi series, on, especially during that section. It's like I think I fell asleep like in the middle of during the Endless 8, and you just let me sleep because there's really nothing about those episodes to add on to.
yeah, it's like, look, I get it. I get why you did this, and I'm not going to complain that you did this, but this is definitely one of those things where it's like, I will praise it as the art it is, but I will also not do that again.
Yeah.
Like, there was a reason this was a very small section, like a throwaway section in the melancholy, in like the Haruhi Suzumiya light novels.
Yeah.
It was very experimental and avant-garde for you to do this, and I applaud you for the boldness, but I'm never watching that entire thing again. It's just not fucking happening. Like,
I can understand why the director was worried about the DVD sales, because the section for all the Endless 8 were going to be like on the same 1 or 2 disc, and it's like, yeah, I can understand why people would skip that disc.
yeah. Oh my god, that was Pain Dio, right? Pain Dio.
Pain Dio. Darling in the Franxx was not Pain Dio.
Oh yeah,
It
no.
was beautiful Dio.
Oh man. Yeah, it still remains. This one and Evangelion are my favorite mecha series for wildly different reasons, right? Yeah. I think actually, personally, I think this is Trigger's best work. But you know, that's just me.
I 100% agree on that.
That's not to say that I disliked any of Trigger's work. The only like series I actually kind of disliked from Trigger was Brand New Animal. That was about it. It wasn't even that I disliked it. It was just like it was kind of dull halfway through, right?
Yeah.
But what's your evaluation of my first attempt at a video essay?
As a first attempt, it did pretty good.
Okay, could you give me a grade letter? Or
A grade letter on a scale of 1 to 10, I give you a C.
a C, eh? I'm truly living under a harsh critic. The first thing that comes to mind is that scene from Aladdin. It's like, I'm losing to a rug. Like me, if I could do me. Oh my god. All right.
Yeah, but it's like, again, it's like I would put it like in the straight. It's like, again, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would put it as basically like a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. It's like you can see where the growing pain was, but you can also see basically like how much or like you can see all the work that you put into this, not just the actual thing and editing, but at the same time all the information you put in there.
I fucking hate video editing with a passion, to be perfectly honest. Like, I there are people who love it. Like, I know, I saw Pompo the Cinephile. I know there are people who love that shit. I can't fucking stand video editing, to be perfectly honest. Like, I'll do it if I have to. I'll do it if I have to, but it's like, I cannot stand video editing. Nah. So do you have anything you want to say that you think went unsaid or anything like that?
Nothing about the video, but I do have one thing to say. Skybro and the community, if you see this video and think about putting me into one of y'all's video, well, just note, I am thinking of making my own character, so I'm not going to use Hata no Kokoro all the time.
Yeah, he's using I think it's a Toho character, right?
Toho project, yes.
Yeah.
My most favorite character from the series.
Yeah, so it would be a whole Penny Bloomfeld situation in that case. So it's just completely avoid that for the time being. But yeah. So let's yeah. So I actually, one person, I'll tell you the story later, because it's actually, but anyway, I guess that'll be it for right now if we don't have anything to add. Again, the long promised video of 3,000 years ago has finally been delivered, right?
Wait, the trucker video is out now?
Oh, that shit's never coming out.
We'll never let them live it down.
That's like looking for a Quran accurate fucking Injil or Tarut. It's just never gonna fucking happen. Such a thing does not exist.
We'll never let them live it down.
The book of the life of Adam and Eve. It's like, well, that shit doesn't exist. Oh my god. So I guess y'all have a good day. And yeah, there's the commentary and insight from this particular video essay. I had no idea what I was doing, so this was completely hodgepodge together to meet a deadline. That way I could say that I released this thing, to be perfectly honest. I do intend to make more video essays, but it's never going to be my main thing. It's just going to be a thing that I'm going to do like sporadically. And I do have to learn more video editing issues to actually do that, to get this up to the quality of other anime essayists, right? So, yeah, so...
and remember, a brick to the face hurts.
Alright, so y'all take care. I am going to go... I guess I'm going to go get a drink of, like, soda. So, y'all have fun.
Doodaloo.